Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again to another NIO live stream for the Q1 2022 earnings. I guess you guys already have the news and you saw this news release in your inbox and possibly you went through all of it already. So let me know down in the comments. Are you happy with the results so far? Are you disappointed? Did you anticipate? I will give you my views in a second. And yeah, a little bit of a context, I would say. So maybe let's start with Seeking Alpha here, because they're usually quick to kind of summarize the key points, and they can do that even better than I ever could. And basically, NIO was beating on the earnings per share, the non-GAAP, because I think, it was minus 17 cents, actually, I think, or minus 16 cents, yeah. And it comes in a little bit lower than that, which is good, actually quite a bit unexpected here. And also the revenue came in at 1.56 billion US dollars, and that's beating the NIO's own forecast here at by 80 million. So NIO has guided between 1.51 billion to 1.56 billion, and so yeah, they're beating the Wall Street estimates here now at the upper range of their own guidance, I would say. So yeah, that's for the very broad picture, the main metrics there. And then, of course, the outlook, which is always the main thing here currently in the stage of NIO. Deliveries between 23,000 and 25,000 during the Q2. So yeah, we have the issue here that NIO is reporting very late. Chinese companies are generally reporting very, very late, but NIO even further. I think it's a bit of a strategic thing that NIO is doing there. It gives them some time to kind of, especially now with the lockdowns, to cope with this a lot of uncertainty. But yeah, if they come in at those kind of the deliveries which they are guiding to 23,000 to 25,000, that would mean between 11,000 and 13,000 June deliveries. And you can see the range is quite broad here. So maybe they do this once again on purpose. I think usually they are not going lower. So I would say we can book for the 23,000, and yeah, that's taken away a little bit of the uncertainty, possibly the first month finally over 10K deliveries for sure again. So that is kind of the, let's say, the main parts of this report so far. Of course, we have the issue here that with this release, we don't get all of the information that we possibly want to have or need by now, because we need a little bit more flavor. So I would say the earnings call with the analyst questions will be the bigger takeaway than this actual news release here. But anyways, let's dive into some of these key metrics here on top of that. And yeah, to be honest, for me, the vehicle sales are coming in, and the overall revenues are coming in a little bit higher than I personally expected, because I was actually thinking that the average sales, the average sales price would come down significantly, because they had only a 17% share of the ES8 during that quarter, and the ES8 is the highest margin, the highest average sales price car, and so if that is low in deliveries, then usually that also means a lower average sales price. And so I was kind of, surprised to see that they are meeting kind of the upper part of their revenue guidance there. And that's interesting. On the other hand, I did expect that margins would be coming down, but actually they are really down significantly here, right? So the vehicle margin is coming in at only 18%, and the gross margin even further, not even 15%. And that is, certainly speaking for itself, that they had lots of cost pressure during that quarter for sure. Let me look a little bit at the explanations here, right to the margins, because I would I would say that this is maybe one of the most negative takeaways from this report, and certainly where I would say you guys might also be most critical about. And so, well, what they're saying about the gross margin is that it's attributed to the decrease of vehicle margin and the reduction in other sales margin resulting from expanded investments in power and service network. So if you have watched my previous live stream on the previous NIO earnings, I said, like, we don't really know yet when they will be booking all of the expansion in charging and swap station build out, because usually you have some sort of a delay. They have suppliers, they have contracts with them where they can have payment terms maybe up to 90 days. So I really wasn't sure that in the last quarter we booked already most of the expansion of the NIO swap stations. And if you remember, like in the last months of the last year, they have really done building lots of swap stations up to maybe 2-digit per day, right? And so it seems like parts of this effect is still trickling down here on these reports right now. And on the other hand, like if we're looking out further, this maybe means also because now they have slowed down a little bit, because I guess they have now the feeling that there are many swap stations around. So they have this average, like how many cars can now utilize one swap station, or the other way around, how many swap stations per car are now in the fleet. And they've shown that this number has come down significantly. So now it's actually the time to increase the deliveries and the output so that this number gets kind of uncomfortable again, meaning more congestion maybe at swap stations and so on until they really have to invest in that type of build out again. And so I would expect that maybe Q1 and Q2 are a bit lighter on this metric in terms of that they're not keeping the pace of the battery swap station and the charging infrastructure built out, because basically they have done that in the last couple of months. And this should actually, going forward, maybe ease some pressure on this metric here. And this might be an impact from the past, hopefully, in a way. Regarding the vehicle margin, it's also down to 18.1% compared to 21% in the first quarter of 2021, so a year ago, and 20.9% in the fourth quarter. And they attribute that one to the product mix. And also mention here explicitly the increased battery cost per unit. So, okay, so now the inflation, we're all talking about it. Input costs are rising. Let's see. This might be a topic that will, impact us during this entire year, and maybe can only be offset with, first of all, NIO has increased the prices, and obviously this forced them to do so. And second of all, maybe also because, I don't know, maybe the battery cost can actually come down a little bit. We see that the commodities have been spiking, but also what could help NIO going forward is basically the higher volume, right? So if they are in the final stage, well, not the final stages, but in the stages of a bigger ramp up of the ET7 starting now, and then the ET5, this should actually also help to distribute the cost among a broader range of models and also a broader range of units sold. But certainly concerning here that it's now this, I think it's the second decline in a row, right? Quarter over quarter. And to be honest, like the Q2 will possibly be even worse in many of these aspects there, because that's when the lockdown really hit hard. And I mean, the numbers are even worse for Q2. If they are managing to arrive at the 25,000 deliveries, then it's very similar to this quarter. If it's coming down to the 23,000 deliveries, then of course there might be additional pressure for those cost increases on distributed among a lower sales base, actually, even. Then, okay, let's just continue jumping from the margins onto the operational expenses here. And the R&D costs are still quite high, so they keep it at a similar level to Q4. They have stated that they're gonna invest more and more into R&D, and that this is now also due to personal cost increase in research and development. And for example, in this category, you will see things like engineers, like programmers in the area of autonomous driving, which will be a big topic going forward from Q4. And so, yeah, these are costs which we are gonna see for a while, and I think they're positive because this means that they are working on making the product better and having sure that they have like the most competitive product on the market, and really also a good pipeline of new products coming. And also, still, although NIO is one of the smart cars on the road, I would say in the area of software, they still can show improvement. The latest operating system looks really good, but as I've shown in the video about the first videos about the ET7 and their ADAS function, there is still lots of work to be done. So we always need to remind ourselves that NIO was almost at the verge of bankruptcy. They fired lots of people in these areas, and so you also have to compensate for the still stand for quite a long time, right? So these expenses are kind of necessary, while for the selling at the SG&A, these expenses, you want to see them decline over time, or at least on a relative basis to the units to stay quite even. And in this quarter, they say that although they have been up year over year, but they have also decreased from the last quarter, which is kind of to be expected, given that also the sales are not ramping that much in Q1. I will have to calculate it back to the units, like per car sold, like how much that attributes. I haven't done that work yet, but it seems to me like these are roughly in line and should be like kind of building out a base. So basically saying that NIO has now kind of a baseline at which they know for this cost they can sell a car into the market, and not having to invest more into that. But of course, also here, the sales and service network expansion is mentioned here. So that means new NIO houses, new NIO spaces. We'll see that the global ramp will also be costly for sure, not only for employees overseas, but also for NIO houses overseas. For example, they have now a service center in Norway, which hopefully also helps to improve the local deliveries, not only the experience, but also the numbers of cars being sold. And so, the losses, I mean, it's very, very unsurprising that this is a loss-making quarter. That's the stage in which NIO is at. And NIO is not a profit-generating business right now. They do have, because of their very lean model, they have lots of operational costs, cash flow, so they don't have to invest a lot into creating their own factories and things like that. So they have lots of cash coming in from the vehicle sales and can see how they distribute that among the partners which they have to pay for different services. And so that's one of the advantages of this NIO model there. And on the good side here, the losses came in not as high as Wall Street has estimated here. And once again, here it's also good to see the cash balance at $8.4 billion. So from these kind of metrics, that's quite healthy. Although right now, this is also, of course, why the NIO stock is under pressure. Of course, now businesses that generate positive earnings, like Tesla, for example, but also the more conservative businesses in a time of fear and uncertainty around inflation are in favor, not so much startups, and this is why NIO has been beaten down as well. Let's have a look at the CEO and CFO comments. Here's I highlighted a remark about robust demand for the complementary products and an all-time high order inflow in May 2022. So that's kind of reassuring. I hope we get a little bit more insight around let's say the expectations for the entire year, not so much only for the next quarter. We know Q2 will definitely be weak and not a good quarter. Q3 would be nice to have more views on, but the general year, the entire year would be interesting. Going into this year, I was hoping for a 100% year-over-year growth rate. So putting it at roughly 190,000 deliveries, I think with all of the COVID lockdowns, we can basically scrap that one off the books. Will possibly not happen this year because NIO so far seems to be not as fast as catching up with that. I don't see how they can actually do that with what they mentioned here. Let me see. That was also in this report. The ET5 deliveries expected in September. So of course, that's only giving them a couple of months for September deliveries. They won't start with 10K a month in September, that's for sure. And then interestingly, at least also the ES7 deliveries in late August. So yeah, no, it seems like in September we can see a jump with those two additional models there. But still, many question marks, like how fast can they really ramp those? And the main bottleneck, I think, is with all of the issues around the supplier side in Shanghai with the lockdowns, and then also the downtime in the factory in Hefei. So that is kind of, unfortunately unforeseen a bit. But on the other hand, now the uncertainty is kind of out of it. We now know they're opening up, although they are still, this could change very quickly again. If there's an outbreak somewhere, maybe even in Hefei, NIO's plant could be shut down again, right? So definitely have to adjust the views on this, the full year here. But I do expect, especially on the weak spots here in terms of the margins, that this will really improve in Q3 and Q4 and get back to those older numbers that we are used to. But really prime time will only be in 2023, I think, when they are walking more towards those 25% NT 2.0 margins that they have announced. That will take a longer time for sure, but that will be quite sexy in the long run then, with those high average sales prices and increasingly margins that are very high in industry comparison, not getting too close to Tesla here, which is around 30%, but almost, right? It's pretty good. What else? I think there was one thing that I found difficult to understand, which is the average selling. Yeah, they had so that the vehicle margin, they also said they had lower average selling price due to changes in the product mix. And I spoke about this before, that they had only 17% of the high margin and high sales price ES8. However, according to my quick calculations, I think the average sales price was roughly around $56,000. So maybe there is also some sort of a currency issue in there. This is always very hard to predict, especially with the US dollar really spiking recently. And yeah, I remember one quarter we had really also the impact of the US dollar or the currency fluctuations. I haven't seen them in the report right now. You can write me a comment if you have spotted something like this. But I would imagine that there might be some currency risk for NIO there. Let me see. Right now, NIO is down significantly, -6%. But this also seems like more in the general sector. Wow, it's quite volatile today. Alibaba was up more than 3% pre-market this morning. It's now down 3%. The latest report that I've seen is that I've basically been saying that in my last video, if you watch that one, that Alibaba might actually be, or at least Ant Financial might be able to IPO. I mentioned that they have now brought this lady from Hong Kong Stock Exchange onto the board, but maybe that the lockdowns are flaring up a little bit, So we've seen something like this in Shanghai, new compounds been locked down, and also in Beijing there are some some scenes of new lockdowns, or at least they have now 1 to 5 cases sometimes. So maybe they found some community cases and are implementing quick restrictions. I don't know what is the case here, why China is down pre-market in general, like Xpeng as well, Li Auto here, Alibaba significantly. What is Baidu doing? Where do I have it? Here, Baidu, just slightly in the green. Yeah, maybe this is not purely a reaction to this earnings release. I would say it seems like NIO has been down roughly -3% before that release. Let's have a look at the chart. I think actually NIO didn't have too much space to run anyways. So it's having a history of selling off right after such earnings, right? So I'm really not expecting a lot. It would have had maybe some space to run to $22 before meeting a serious resistance here, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's tanking on these news. NIO is still very, very volatile, and as long as we don't get something maybe more tangible on the earnings call that kind of puts more confidence into the future outlook, then I think we may see some weakness in NIO, additionally to some possible profit taken in Chinese names. I mean, KWeb, right, was having a blast in the last couple of days. Look at this, really a strong outbreak here. And so it's nothing unusual. I think we still depend a little bit more on the overall market. Tomorrow, of course, we've got inflation numbers. Next week, we have the Fed meeting. So usually our risky and volatile strategies don't like these type of events too much. So yeah, in case NIO is selling off, I think that's really the rather expected event. So let's have a look a little bit at some of your questions. Maybe there are some bits which I have missed. And then actually, let me just quickly check. I haven't even checked when is the webcast. That's at 8 p.m. Beijing. Okay, so still some time. Because I'm definitely also gonna listen to that one. As I mentioned, that will be the most important takeaway for today, not so much even this earnings report. But yeah, let's have a look at some of your questions. Here, that's not really a question, but your sentiment, you say that NIO has failed hard on margins. Yeah, that's really the negative takeaway of this report. And yeah, I gave you my views, so kind of can be explained, to be expected that it's weak. And I think actually in the next quarter, even similarly or even worse than that. When entrance in the Netherlands and Germany, I think we can expect that in September, by the end of September, at least for Germany. I know that they are building NIO houses already in Germany. And so, yeah, that's certainly something very, very exciting coming up. I think NIO will be a perfect fit for Germany in many regards. The product, but also I think the swapping will be kind of well received here. And they've been doing lots of groundwork. So that's good to see. Thanks for pumping the likes, mind the life stuff. I really appreciate it. In my video yesterday, I already said, like, really just very few people are commenting these days. So I'm wondering, like, why is everyone so silent? So always appreciate a like and a comment. And yeah, consider supporting our channel on Patreon. So that helps us keep us going. It's always appreciated. Thank you very much. And maybe you've noticed that I don't have any ads on this channel and not pushing this sort of stuff. That's, of course, because I have the support from you guys. Yeah, maybe the Shanghai lockdowns are kind of the negative news today. Or let's say not really lockdowns, but that parts of it are kind of, more restrictive again. This opening up is kind of gradually, like the port of Shanghai is almost back to 100%. I think most of the companies which are more located outside are back to production. So that's the most important part. But yes, mainly in some of these areas where it's very residential, still some people couldn't go out of their buildings yet, although that's really the minority, but also some had to go back. So it's a shaky situation. Yeah, buy the rumors, sell the news. We have witnessed that too many times, right? Greetings from Mexico. Que bien. Loving Mexico. I've been to Guadalajara, to Mexico City, Oaxaca. Really nice country. I can recommend going there. When NIO in Mexico, that might be not the first country on the map, huh? Is it good news for the stock or not? So that's a very simple question. To give you a simple answer, I don't think that this is a catalyst for NIO stock. No, I don't think anything in this report will be a positive surprise that could kind of really accelerate the stock going forward. But usually the markets are more forward-looking. So this is basically all in the past already. This is old news. We just get the old news maybe sometimes later than the others have it. Yeah, exactly. I noticed the same, Dirk. Usually after earnings, it's really tanking. Then it takes 2 to 4 days or even a week. It's depending on the cycle of the market in general until it can go up again and kind of consolidating. Greetings to Martin. Good to see you again. Oh no, you had to buy a Hyundai. Why don't you buy a Mercedes anyway? I'm wondering. But yeah, I think there's lots of potential buyers in Germany for a NIO, I would say. And here, good question. How do you read the recent rally on NIO just before earnings? I would say that this rally is mostly driven by a general strength in Chinese names. So I've just shown KWEB before. So this ETF, I usually have Brandon Ahern right on the show here, who's managing this fund, and it's been up 42% from lows to peak. That's quite big for an ETF, and I think it's carrying the whole sector, so it's not unique to NIO. And I think the main news here is increased positive expectations for earnings in the future based on monetary easing and opening up of the economy again after lots of the issues have already happened and are now behind us, hopefully. How long this can carry? I think this can carry as long as we don't see a major event on, let's say, monetary policy, inflation data, macroeconomics, political events. These sort of things could kind of kill this rally. But other than that, I think like just simply from an valuation perspective, this has lots of room to go, obviously. But good to see that it's breaking out here. So at some point it will be retesting some of these areas, maybe the 30 US dollars here for KWEB, and then see whether or not it finds support. But I wouldn't be surprised actually if this rally continues a little bit further, if tomorrow news are good about the inflation data, about jobs in the US, about housing in the US, about the next meeting with the Fed, how much are they going to hiking, what they say about future hikes, that sort of things come through well, then I think we could do well as well. Here's a positive take about Q2 guidance between 23,000 and 25,000, which I said is quite broad, so it's giving them a little bit room to play. And it's showing that, of course, June is going to be positive, very likely above 10K, between 11K and 13K, according to this guidance. And then, yeah, July, hopefully they can finally keep that level, right? If everything else is going well. They did not, Patrick, good to see you here. One of my patrons, I remember your name. Thanks for the support and your question. They didn't say too much about the supply chain other than that they have been impacted by it, right? Supply chain. Yeah, these are parts of the issues explaining some of the numbers and challenges here, but nothing too much going forward other than they're working with their partners to ramp it up. So it's not very concrete in that regard. Nothing that we can really work with. I guess we have to see. But I mean, like, it is like it is. This quarter isn't super pretty. It's also not super bad in terms of missing on expectations of Wall Street. It's not super great. The next one is also not going to be nice, to be frank. And the first one that could actually be positive is Q3 and then Q4. And still, the situation is very, very volatile and shaky. Could actually even get worse for Q3 as well. Who knows? Let's take more of your questions here. Yeah, Berlin NIO House is in the works as far as I am concerned. And so really looking forward to seeing that one open. And yeah, why not? Let's meet there and have some NIO gang gatherings. Not too many questions or things that I missed from the report, it seems. Usually because I'm just going through them on the fly, I happen to miss some of these things. But it seems like most of it is in line with what you also have read from the report. Do you think the earnings call can help the stock? Yes, I think there might be a possibility in case that they mention something. Usually they give lots of new information in the earnings call that is not covered in this report. So yeah, I need to sign up for it and listen to it. Maybe I can do it live here as well, this call. Yeah, and then there should be some good stuff in there, hopefully. But maybe they also stay very conservative, and in that case, they would not give any hints that would be too bullish for us. Yeah, still some time until this earnings call starts. So I don't expect anything that could really move the stock from around these earnings right now. I think what will happen is once we get something like a upward guidance on the EPS estimations, like from Wall Street itself. So if I look here at NIO earnings trends or estimates trends, once that one is going up, you see here the EPS is trending down still. So once that one might be going up again, and this cannot happen before Q2 is over, this may actually be a catalyst also on a fundamental side, because basically right now you have the issue, with all of this uncertainty around inflation, and nobody really is touching growth stocks, of course, that you only want to invest in companies, or like the institutions, they only want to invest in companies where they can expect very certain returns going forward, like very, very very easy to predict returns and growth. And for NIO, currently they don't show that, right? So that's also why there's a lack of bias and there's an overhang to it. You become negative on a stock. No, I'm not becoming negative on a stock. Actually, I have never changed, but I'm just very realistic. I'm telling you how it is and how I see things. And yeah, there's just nothing in this report which I would say oh wow, that's an unexpected surprise, something that gets me excited. No, I'm not excited about margins decreasing. I'm not excited about a continued loss. But am I surprised by that? No, I'm also not surprised by it. So just telling you how it is. And you need actual fundamentals supporting a buy-in by at least the big money, right? So that's the thing. But it doesn't change anything about the long-term story about NIO. It's just that NIO is currently in a startup stage and in a very certain period where this is just expected. They cannot print profits right now if they still haven't done the basic stuff, laying the foundations. They're not even selling in Germany or in Europe or anywhere since a couple of months. So how do you expect them to kind of focus on the bottom line here already on profitability? That's just not possible. They got it for 2024 for a full year of profitability. That would be pretty epic. And yeah, I think NIO is in many regards, I think, a little bit like a business where lots of the free cash flow will be continuously be reinvested to have this growth metrics that possibly can just be seen internally, like how sticky is the business, how good are the sales going in relation to marketing spend, how many customers are referring the cars, things like that. We don't get any reports about this, right? I do that. I occasionally make like some kind of calculations, and by the way, you can download this sheet. I will update that one again on my Patreon. So I'm trying to get closer to these kind of metrics there by manually calculating them in order to have a guess, like how's the business actually doing internally. But this one, until Wall Street sees that will take months, if not years, because they are not looking at these data points. They will actually look just at earnings per shares, at profits, at revenue beats, stuff like that, right? So that's where the algorithms and the big funds are looking for. And so, yeah, these are just the terrible times that we now have to go through and actually, keep with those sell-offs, if you will, lower share prices and things like that. But in general, I mean, like if the market is becoming more bullish again, and by the way, I wrote a Patreon post just about this topic, like where are my views, where the markets are going. It could be that multiples, so that the valuation metric that you are using are actually expanding. And again, because of course, currently they're contracting, right? And so if that were to happen, I think, of course, you can also see a much better share price movement in the foreseeable future, despite that NIO is not yet a profitable company. These are just my views. You can, of course, have different views for that, but just the fact that I'm talking like this doesn't mean that I'm bearish about this company. In fact, I could have sold and walked away long ago, but I did not, because I do actually think that there is a much longer long-term outlook, which is quite positive and a big potential. Yeah, here's another comment. I think NIO stock price in the short term will mainly be driven by general sentiment towards China tech. I don't think many surprises will come on NIO fundamentals in the short term. Lucas, I fully agree with your take here. I think that's spot on, and that might be the main driver in the foreseeable future, simply because NIO is currently not in a stage where they just pump out those profits yet. They're preparing for that, but so far it mainly remains on the risk basket in which NIO is trading. So along with China tech, but also, frankly, with non-profitable tech. So if you look at ARK Invest, yeah, those names have been selling off quite a bit as well, right? So it's not only China, it is also, yeah, other baskets. Actually, if you look here, that's the orange line. That's Kathy Wood's funds. ARK Invest is even lagging here the Chinese tech, which is KWeb. It's the other chart a little bit, because more recently the Chinese ADRs have been doing well because of the easing and the economic improvement in China, or let's say the anticipated economic improvement in China. See, in China also the economic numbers will print not so good right now. In Q1 it was a surprising 4% GDP growth, while actually the US showed a negative GDP growth. But I'm certainly not saying that the GDP growth of 4.8% is super bullish for China right now. They have the lockdown quarter coming up, and maybe going forward it will take some time until they get really back into growth land when it comes to GDP. I'm not sure if they can meet the 5%, 5.5% on a full year GDP growth, which they've outlined. Most of the analysts actually don't think so. So we'll see. But the stock market is looking forward. So they're now seeing things are changing. So they are anticipating for their positioning that this will be changing in the future, although the next numbers that are coming in, similarly to NIO, might be actually bad, might be negative. Exactly. Alibaba also down pre-market. This is quite surprising, really. Alibaba was up 3% in the pre-market, and now a rug pull, minus 3%. Maybe it's this lockdown thing. I haven't watched more news here. Let me have a look at oil. Oil was breaking out yesterday a little bit. The 10-year is also spiking, still coming down a little bit. Volatility is still trending down, but tomorrow, big meeting, big numbers about inflation in the US. The dollar is consolidating, range bound, going sideways. A strong dollar is not good for Chinese names as well, or in general for equities. And it's been spiking quite a bit. So yeah, we'll see if this can actually stay like this, or if we are getting range bound here as well. So the macroeconomics are really, I would say, the most important factor right now. What do I think about NIO earnings? Lars, thanks for joining us, maybe late. I would say please rewatch my video, this live stream that I'm now doing later on, because you will see my very detailed take. But for everyone who's joined us now, just a bit later, I would say those earnings, despite on the top lines, the revenues and earnings per share, kind of is a beat in comparison to the forecast, but still quite a bit of negative stuff in the earnings in terms of cost, profitability, margins. The outlook is kind of, it's okay, it's good, but it's also quite a broad range. So if it's coming to 23,000 deliveries in Q2, then I think Wall Street won't be much too happy about this. If it's 25K or even more, then certainly will be good. But that's as much as we can take away only from this report, to be honest. Some details in there which I went through, but other than that, don't regard this as a big catalyst. Yeah, the delisting topic, I know, unfortunately, nothing new. The deadline, or the kind of deadline, I mean, what the Chinese regulators have said is that there might be positive news by June or even before that. We certainly didn't have it before June, so we're now in June, still waiting. There is nothing official. I made this video the other day, maybe if you watched it, just talking about some of the hints that are happening now, like Didi being delisted, which is good, I think, and then possibly doing an IPO in Hong Kong. And there seems to be an end to the probe into Didi. And then today we got the news that Ant Financial might actually be going IPO. So that's the one of the holdings of Alibaba, also aligned to this tech crackdown. And I mentioned in my last video that I saw the signs that they have now the exec and on the board of directors of Ant Financial from Alibaba, from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So to me, that is a sign that they're planning to do an IPO. Today, there's the news or the rumor that they might be doing an IPO. So that's a big catalyst. If that, if things like these are resolving, putting end to probes, bringing those, maybe delisting even Didi, but you need to think from a regulator's perspective. They want to kind of end this thing and have certainty. And for them, certainty is that the company is not longer kind of escaping their realm, or is not adhering to the rules anymore. And I think these are little signs that if that is finished and done, if that work is over, then they could also be free to kind of announce a deal on the delisting side, because basically then that's when they can come into place and say, now we have resolved all of the issues about the companies who just went forward and did an IPO without our approval, without our warning. And we now can do this deal, and also in addition put into regulations and rules how new IPOs will be done. Then this would conclude the work, right? But before that, I don't see that happening. So these are some of the signs that I'm seeing, but it's all speculation. It could also not happen. I mean, the SEC is playing pretty tough. It's a very political topic as well. But on the other hand, just on the basic facts, China needs to just do that, right? They need to not just talk about it and say that they want to open up and that they want to play by the rules. Of course, we all know that these rules are being used to put pressure on China and to maybe leverage even some trade talks and other political issues that are going on. So it's not only about the accounting thing, because frankly, not one single fraud will be, I guess, not happening because of those PCAOB oversight. But in the end, the ball is now in the court of China. They need to kick it. It's their move. And if they're not doing that, then sorry, then they deserve to get delisted. That's it. And delisting would be, of course, not good. And of course, if they stay listed and they have this oversight, that would be hugely bullish and a good sign, more transparency to investors. That's really like that. Okay, so maybe here's some news around this possible Ant Financial IPO. It seems like Lei Zheng here has some insight and says that CSRC came out and say that there is no such plan, and maybe that's why Alibaba is tanking. Maybe no Alibaba IPO. I don't know. Maybe the new COVID cases found in Shanghai and Beijing. Maybe something else. Maybe just profit taking. There's sometimes I have the feeling the stories are just being kind of searched for and then put on top of the actual market movement. And sometimes it's maybe just algorithms doing their thing with, having this rally coming into NIO's earnings today and then some profit taking right now. Sometimes the media who's then writing articles tries to connect that to some certain events, and that's not always the case. Wall Street is, I think, much more algorithmic driven and much more on the financial and numbers side. Okay, some more comments about regulators denying the Ant IPO. Okay, that would make sense. That would, if they come out quickly, that this would be kind of a negative to the stock. Yeah, who knows? What else? What are your takes on NIO? Are you kind of going forward? Are you kind of really fearful about what's going to happen next quarter with all of the lockdowns? Yeah, that's an interesting one. The first time that NIO's doing it before market open, maybe they just want to go home earlier. I don't know, because it's always very late. Oh no, usually that's in the morning in China, right? Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Just try to be funny with this comment. That didn't work out. No, I have no idea. If it changed something about the stock reaction, I have no idea. Yeah, usually it gives us more time to digest what they're saying in the reports and in the earnings call. And this time that's not happening. So it will be interesting. So what else? Any more questions that I didn't go through? Just repeat yourself if I didn't get to your question, because maybe they are left in the stream there. To the moon. Yeah, Nomi has now a new moon case or astronaut case. I saw some of the NIO owners in China having that. Yeah, lots of talk about Alibaba. Are there any Alibaba shareholders here? I personally have not one single share in Alibaba. As I always say, I'm a Tencent guy, but to be honest, like investing at Alibaba's at some of these dips is basically a no-brainer to me as well. I wouldn't mind putting my money there. When will NIO start producing at their new factories? So possibly that might be late August, early September, it seems, as they have hinted in this earnings release here, that the ET5 may start deliveries in late September. So usually we see a couple of pre-production models coming after factory before that, which was built in record time. I don't trust pre-market. Yep, pre-market is always not very, it's not very insightful most of the time, because it's very, very, very low volume, lots of retail trading as well. The Germans, the Europeans trading differently than the US institutions, which is the real money. So yeah, don't give it too much significance actually, but it's an indication for sure. So seems like that didn't bode well, those earnings. Luckily, Tesla is up here, another one of my investments. Tesla has been so sluggish recently, very, very weak stock movement. And today the China numbers came in, more than 33,000 China production and deliveries. So most of it exports actually, I think. So that seems to be going well. And then let's say the earnings discount pre-market for NIO is minus 3%, I would say. Seeing that XPeng is down minus 3%, Li Auto also minus 3%. So that should be roughly the same. Alibaba is now catching up a little bit. And so maybe a premium of another minus 3% for NIO there based on this report, which, as I mentioned before, hasn't got any catalyst in there. Yeah, there's the talk about US and China possibly cutting the tariffs. That would be very nice in general. I'm really looking forward to a time in which the US and China hopefully get together and get their shit sorted and, collaborate more again. I'm really not a fan of all of this decoupling, deglobalization sort of things, because I think ultimately it hurts a lot. And that doesn't mean that you have to blindly trust China when it comes to supply chains or putting all of your eggs into a basket. But I mean, even the US is now recognizing that those tariffs didn't really do anything. Like the trade balance is still shitty for the US. And on top of that, it's hurting the US consumer, right? And you're not going to fight inflation with building factories in the US, that's for sure. So yeah, why not cut it off? And then based on that, this also gives China more chances of opening up and making a move towards the US. So yeah, I'm hoping that might happen. Or am I alone with that view, with these views? Are you still long NIO? Of course I'm long NIO. I haven't sold a single share. This is not sort of the company where I'm trading back and forth. Maybe, you know, I'm selling some of my calls, taking gains there, or some other similar like warrants, such kind of products. With this, I'm playing around, but usually with my larger conviction positions, I'm not trying to trade too much around. But as I've mentioned, some of my videos in December and January, and particularly also on the Patreon, on the network, and also in my Patreon posts, I've been raising quite a bit of cash in December and January, selling quite a bit. So I was I was almost leveraged a little bit going into the year. So not having lots of cash, but then, you know, with those Fed meetings, I saw that there's lots of trouble coming. And so I sold, as I mentioned on the channel before, mainly sold my US equities because I thought they are very highly valued. And still, they are holding up quite a bit, but I'm glad I moved out of some of my positions, for example, Cloudflare and so on. What else? Block or former Square. I took most of the gains in such companies because they have been such highly valued names, and I had very good gains. And yeah, trying to reinvest it, but this is quite difficult to get back into this market, I can tell you. What stocks watchers are you using? Well, actually, so for watching pre-market and things like this, I'm using actually Tiger. So that's Tiger Brokers. It's quite interesting because this is open for even Europeans. So I have an account. I can actually fund it. I can trade it there, but I'm not using it for trading. Just want to try it out. I've of course, been invested in Tiger Brokers before. I'm not holding them anymore. Futu, I don't have it, but this is quite usable they have really good real-time data there, and also some social media aspects in there. So I can certainly say this is some good software which we don't have in Europe. I don't see any good brokers in Europe. This is actually also based on interactive brokers on the back end, so that's quite good in terms of fees. And then I'm using TradingView most of the time. So this is where I do, you know, my little bit of esoterics and line drawing here, and trying to predict or see technical patterns, which is mostly an unsuccessful exercise. But yeah, it gives you some sort of orientation and can work out quite well. So if you maybe have noticed my tweets, I've been kind of predicting, this is the blue line, this whole move of the VIX, the volatility index, which was looking quite similar to that one as well. And I hope we finish in this channel the whole entire move back down to the bottom of this trend line, which would imply actually stocks to keep on rallying, because stocks, especially the growth stocks, technology stocks, they hate volatility. Our NIO, whenever VIX is spiking, NIO is selling off quite significantly. And yeah, TradingView is really a good software. Yep, esoteric. It's actually fun. One of the many crackdowns of the the Chinese regulators were to crack down on, I think, something like feng shui and esoterics in China for predicting stock movements. So yeah. No, I'm just making jokes about this because, you know, there's all sorts of people, you know, drawing lines and graphs, for example, about where NIO is going. And in the end, nobody knows anything, you know, like it's always like, oh, yeah, 50% up, 50% down. What I can say to you is like, what I'm doing instead is, making business cases and trying to model like the balance sheet going forward and the revenue streams and so on, because these are the hard facts that at some point will matter. Yeah, of course, it doesn't mean that the stock will automatically follow along. So you see now multiples are contracting. So even if revenue is going up, the stock's still going down, might happen. But, over the long run, it's doing its thing. So, yeah. What IPO confirmed? Tell me if this is true. Other people in the chat have said the IPO is not happening, and that's what the CSRC said. And now you say the IPO by Ant Group is confirmed. That should be good news. Yeah, honestly, the relationship between the US and China really sucks, and I don't really like to do political stuff on my channel or talking about that too much, but unfortunately, it's really a big topic now for our own stocks, right? And much of power plays at hand, and I think also the US is kind of shooting themselves into the foot sometimes in this regard. That's my personal opinion, because ultimately it's pension funds invested in those names. If they don't allow retail investors or institutions to participate in the growth going forward into Chinese names, then that's not good at all as well. Yes, of course, you can say you want to keep those companies down and you want to prevent that China is becoming a successful company, but can you really do that? I mean, China can just move everything to Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and open up for foreign investment, and then there's even less participation by the US. Less equities will be traded in the US dollar, things like that. I don't know how this is any good. I also don't see why the US thinks that China's kind of threatening their hegemony or being a threat to them at all. I don't see anything from the China side. Maybe I'm being naive there. Frankly, I also don't think that China has what it takes to be, the world superpower. I don't see that. So I think the US is a bit too frightened there. The US has great companies. Never bet against American innovation, right? It's a different system, different values, valuing freedom over everything else. Of course, there are downsides to all of it. There are downsides to China. There are downsides to the US, frankly. I was just hoping that those two countries could get along better. I think that it would be truly better for the entire world. But now, since Trump, and very, very unfortunately continuing with Biden, the relations are very, very bad. And I think, it's also China's fault. The fact that they haven't opened up, that, politicians are not going outside of the country and meeting other politicians face to face. And the Chinese should know that. There's a term called guanxi in China, which effectively translates into relationship. So that is something that's very, very important in Chinese culture. And the fact that they just closed themselves in China, it really sucks. And you cannot expect good relationships based on that, right? I don't know what's your take on this, but this is mine. And I do hope that they just get more realistic again and see that it would actually be to the benefit of both countries. I do know that China is sometimes playing unfair in some regards. So lots of let's say restrictions of foreign business, things like that. So that's certainly also not nice by China. On the other hand, like from a European perspective, we kind of missed out to do what China has done, which is to build up our own tech ecosystem, right? We only have Facebook, we only have Twitter, and the Europeans are going nuts also about that. We are delivering our data for free to US companies. Who's benefiting from that? It's US investors, it's US companies. So yeah, difficult world. What's the recession impact on NIO's company growth? So I would say, and that's partly due to why many Chinese companies have been doing not so well. I think partly because the growth expectations have been not good in China recently. The earnings came in quite better for example, Alibaba, for Tencent, for Baidu. So actually, the bottom lines of the businesses haven't been affected as badly as people have assumed, but they have discounted them for a sort of recessionary environment. So I don't know. So I know that China is not meeting the very definition of a recession, meaning 2 consecutive GDP prints that are negative. But I mean, with all of the lockdowns and things like that, I mean, the economy has really cooled down significantly, right? So you can say that NIO is kind of already experiencing such kind of a recession. Let me see. Maybe I can play actually the conference call when it's starting. I can live stream it if that works. Otherwise, I may have to restart the live stream at some point, but I'm happy to do that this time. Usually I skip that part because it's usually, when they do it at night, it's like 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. here in Germany. Good question here about Alibaba. How do I think that Alibaba business has been impacted by the lockdowns in China? Actually, I do have some data on that, and I might do another video on that. So Alibaba is coming out of this terrible situation right now, and the earnings been better than anticipated, and it's having this nice run in the stock price, right? So I think that's releasing lots of pain for Alibaba investors, and I am not invested in this company, so I'm not following it very closely. I'm not invested in Chinese e-commerce at all, despite NIO, which I think will have good prospects in the area of e-commerce as well in the future, and I've done a couple of videos on that. But Alibaba finally coming out of this. But I do think, similar to NIO, maybe the Q2 earnings will be the real challenge. And I do think you will see those impacts by the lockdowns in Q2 earnings, and that won't be pretty. That won't be good. I think they have been heavily impacted. Surprisingly, JD, the numbers have been quite good. So Antoine, thanks for your question. The quick sum up once again, please re-watch this video from the very beginning. Right now, this is a live stream, so it started kind of when the release came out. I think the release was beating both on revenues and earnings per share against the analyst predictions. So that's okay, that's positive. But in the actual report, there's nothing that's getting us exciting. So no catalyst for the stock. Quite a bit of bad data about the margins and the costs. So that's not nice. That's not good. And so based on that, I think NIO typically is selling off after earnings, but more generally, it seems that the whole China sector is down significantly. Xpeng also down -4%, Li Auto down -4%, Baidu slightly up, Alibaba down 2%. It's flip-flopping around here a little bit pre-market, which kind of makes sense. Lots of profit taking, I think, after this huge run. So that's about it. Thanks. Now we have spam bots coming in here. Let me just block them. Hope that works. Sorry for all of the spam bots in here in the chat section. Yeah, in the past, it sold off during earning or the after earnings call by 10%, sometimes even more. It had a nice run into the earnings, so yeah, do expect profit taking. That's nothing unusual. Will NIO go down to $8? I think that would be a seriously ridiculous valuation for NIO at $8 US. I don't know if it will go down there or not. It all depends on the broader sentiment in the market. But I certainly don't trust those people who say that it will go down there for sure and that it needs to kind of fill a gap or something ridiculous like that. Nobody knows anything. The market will decide. We'll see. This is certainly not my base case. I will never wait for $8 US for, let's say, buy more of it. Yeah, I think the only price target that I ever gave and that I'm still sticking with is this $40 US based on a 2025 business case and a Huawei agreement. I think that is a realistic valuation that NIO at some point will achieve. It has exceeded that for some time already. I also think that the Bailey Gifford prospectus, which is ultimately looking at a valuation close to more than $300 US a share, is something that is achievable in a very, very long run, maybe not 2025, but in case that NIO should meet all of their vision and plans in the future, I think it could do that. That's also the reason why I haven't sold my position in NIO, despite being up, I think, more than 1,500% at some point in time. But anyways, also Amazon has been down 90% at some point in time. NVIDIA been down 80% at some point in time. AMD has been down 80%. So things like that can happen. 40 it is. Yeah, $40 US, I think, is a valuation that is quite sensible for the 2025 baseline and a normal growth if they meet those expectations based on this Huawei deal, which they made with the local government. I think investors will be valuing NIO at that latest by 2025. Not 14, no. I think we'll be looking at a much better valuation at the end of the year due to the November-December pumps, as well as ET7 starting to sell in Europe. Yep, I can very much relate to your take here. On the other hand, I remember last year we've been trading around $30 US or $35 US, and I said, like, it's very likely that we will, finish the year up. And well, maybe the heavy decline started in the beginning of this year, but I was certainly more bullish back then on the prospects of meeting the end of the year with a little run, maybe because I thought like much of the selling pressure was maybe due to taxation issues and things like that. But the Fed in the end killed it with the rate hikes, and since Powell was starting to speak in November, December, all of the alarm bells were ringing. No chance that NIO could compete in such kind of a really, really bad environment. So yeah, on the other hand, let's say NIO also got ahead of itself during the 2020 run up, with lots of liquidity, lots of people chasing. So that was also an unusual peak. But the markets are overshooting at the upside as well as on the downside. So question by Francesco. do you think the news from Europe that they will stop gasoline car production in 2035 will boost the EV market? And what do you think the goal in 13 years? Right. So yeah, this such kind of regulation, I think we'll see. We are seeing popping all over the world. Maybe China being quite aggressive. Also, Norway, some of the Scandinavian countries doing this quite aggressively. In China, you also in Germany, you always need to know we have a very big lobby by the automotive industry, and of course, we are bought in heavily in the internal combustion engine production. So expect a little bit of delay there. If that's actually to happen by 2035, of course, this will accelerate EV adoption, but I think it will be mainly driven by consumer preference anyways, because EVs are just so much better in terms of driving performance. The only kind of thing is, like, in some people's minds, it's still, the issues about charging and range, but I think range anxiety is quite also a little bit of a unrealistic thing. If you're actually experiencing it, it's not that bad. And then, of course, there are solutions like NIO now with battery swapping, I think, can alleviate lots of pain, for example, from a German perspective. So Germans really like to run on the Autobahn and go like 200 and then have a 5-minute break and go back onto the Autobahn. You can do that with a NIO. So that will be received very well. You don't have this take from many Germans, which are like, oh, I can never do that with an EV. I need my Mercedes gasoline V8 burning lots of fuel and going fast. But no, this will resolve over time as people are getting more used to driving EVs, I would say. Yeah, sorry about those spam bots. I'm blocking them. I hope this is working actually here in the backend. I'm trying to delete them as fast as I can. And yeah, in the long run, that's coming back to your question here. In the long run, so this is not only good for the EV adoption in general, and I think Tesla will have possibly the main take of that, as they are the fastest to scale in the mass market. And I think NIO will be doing very, very well in the premium segment and taking a fair share of what has been occupied by many of the German companies before. And so that's still a positive outlook there. Then additionally, I'm always saying why I'm invested in NIO and Tesla, because I think that the companies are fairly different in their vision and goals. And NIO also has this NIO Life aspect and the e-commerce side to it. And I think that will take really a couple of years to kick in and to show. You don't build a community and a NIO Life business in a very short amount of time. Maybe that's also another takeaway again here from the other sales. You don't really see that popping up, right? So far in these quarterly reports, that will be an annual phenomena to watch. But yeah, that's kind of the Bailey Gifford vision there for NIO. Also, what's making this company more and more valuable over time, I would say. What else? By Jürgen. Do you think the new plant in the US will influence the delisting threats? This is still a big issue for the end of 2022. Jürgen, I think, and I actually done a video on that. I'm not sure if you've watched it, but I don't think they will build their own plant. I don't see that happening, mainly because I think this partnership model is the way to go for NIO. That's kind of the lean way of how they're doing it, outsourcing production. NIO will focus on their core value propositions and capabilities and activities, which are design, which are having compelling products, taking care of the user and the user experience, kind of nurturing this NIO Life community. I think that's what they care most about. And all the while having cars selling at a decent margin and a good average sales price. So I'm always saying, like, for Tesla, it is all about declining cost curves and getting the latest buck out of selling the car. So very cost driven. For NIO, it's more like an e-commerce business. It's more like your customer lifetime value. So you once generate a customer, hopefully at low acquisition cost, and then you want to keep them in the loop as long as possible, basically milking the customer along the way with subscriptions, with reoccurring revenues, maybe in the area of selling goods, but maybe also selling another car, upgrading batteries. All those things are revenues. The adders, like the autonomous driving subscriptions, all of these will be revenues that will come on top of actually selling cars. And in my business case, they make kind of a very, very important chunk of the overall earnings of NIO in the very distant future. And so, I don't think they are too keen on actually building a plant. Maybe there's lots of spare capacity in the US as well. Maybe something with GM, with Ford, with Magna, I don't know, any empty plant that they can use or some type of collaboration. And this collaboration approach may actually also lift some of the fears about US-China relationships. I saw that NIO is hiring somebody for government relations in the US. I know they have been very active in Germany on most of the, talks, networking events, industry events. They have been talking on panels. They have been giving talks. They have met up with politicians. I'm expecting they're doing the same thing in the US. But frankly, I'm also very pessimistic, as you've heard before, about those whole US-China relations. And in the case of that's once again where the US is doing a bad job at not attracting investment in the end. Because should I go all in and invest a lot of money in the US now as a Chinese company, and maybe something happens and all of my assets are getting frozen, or I'm getting thrown out of the country? No, thanks. I don't want to do that as a CEO. I don't want to do an investment that is very heavy in the US at this time of environment. And so that's a loss for the US in a way. But on the other hand, that also maybe means that NIO will not go too aggressively in the US in a market expansion, maybe selling a couple of cars, but maybe not, making it their most important market. But anyways, China and Europe are the most important markets for EVs anyways. So this is exactly where they will focus on. Damn those bots. Sorry about this again. Martin is surprised lots of other companies do not want to go for battery swapping. Well, this is not an easy process, right? You need years of advancement of R&D in order to actually think about that. And it's interesting, I just saw some recent takes by Herbert Diess, who is, of course, the CEO of Volkswagen. And he still thinks of battery swapping just as a way of, charging the car. And he's like saying, in the future, we'll have those fast charging batteries. And while this is still debatable, if that will actually happen and will happen at a sustainable rate, I've been making the case here on the channel that battery swapping is about much more than just replenishing power, right? You can actually really upgrade the battery technology at any point of time. You have a slower charging rate, which is better to preserve the battery state. You have the ability to buffer renewable energies like wind and solar with charging those batteries in the battery swap station. So all very positive, much more. But usually those legacy automakers and CEOs, they really struggle to comprehend and see something else that is out of their ecosystem. They are just not used to this business model. They're more like, just thinking about selling cars. And that's where NIO, as a startup and as a internet-based car company, they are thinking different about that. We're talking quite a bit already. I think the earning call is about to start in like 4 minutes. Let me just quickly see how I can also share the sound with you, if that's possible. I'm not hearing any sound yet. With you, if that's possible. I'm not hearing any sound. So usually they are playing some nice melody there. Should I start a new stream or should I just keep on going? Let me refresh this one. Oh, now I hear the sound. You guys can possibly not hear the sound, right? Let me share this tab. This one and the tab audio. Now you should be able to hear the sound, right? Let me know in the comments if you can actually hear the sound of the earnings call, then we could be listening to it together. Some nice Chinese melodies playing in the background. It works? Yay, awesome. Must be actually the first earnings call that I'm covering live here on the channel. Usually I only do these sort of reports, right? Let me know if the sound is a little bit too loud. I can tune it down until the actual call starts. The problem is I cannot share something else at the same time here, I think. Here's another question. Investing in JD, is it better than in Alibaba? Well, I have no strong views on that, but you know, Alibaba is possibly the bigger company, but JD is a little bit more specific and more premium. Personally, I would invest in JD rather than Alibaba. That's just my personal opinion. After working in the e-commerce field in China, I didn't have the best experiences with Alibaba, to be honest. But that's more on a company level, not so much on the, of course they're doing lots of good stuff for the consumers in China. That is without a doubt. Seems now I have crashed. The back end here a little bit, trying to share some other slides with you. How do I go back here?
Hello, ladies. Forward-looking statements made under the safe harbor provision.
Sorry guys, I'm back. Accidentally crashed it a little bit here. Can you hear it?
Forward-looking statements
again?
Inherent risks and uncertainties. As such, The company's actual results may be materially different from the views expressed today. Further information regarding risks and uncertainties is included in certain filings of the company with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong.
Okay, and make it louder.
The company does not assume any obligation to update any forward-looking
Do you hear it
statements
now? It's still like
as required under applicable
so
law.
usually the
Please also note
beginning is
that
very
news earnings press release and this conference
usually the
call
beginning is not
includes
really
discussion
noteworthy
of
watching
unaudited
or
GAAP
listening
financial
to.
information, as well as
It's usually
unaudited
pre-scripted.
non-GAAP financial
What's
measures.
really interesting is when
Please refer
the
to
analysts
news
are
press
asking
release,
questions.
which contains a reconciliation of the unaudited non-GAAP measures to comparable GAAP measures. With that, I will now turn the call over to our CEO, Mr. William Li. William, please go ahead.
大家好，非常感谢各位参加未来2022年第一季度业绩沟通会议。
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining NIO's first quarter 2022 earnings conference call.
2022年第一季度，未来整车交付量达到历史新高，总共交付了25,768辆高端智能电动汽车，同比增长37.6%。
In the first quarter of 2022, we delivered 25,768 premium smart electric vehicles, another record quarter with a growth of 37.6% year-over-year.
3月中下旬起，由中国部分地区新一轮的新冠疫情，公司的整车生产和交付受到影响。 2022年4月和5月，蔚来分别交付了5074辆和7024辆新车。6月份开始，供应链和整车生产已经基本恢复正常，包括上海在内的多个重要市场的交付工作也已经步入正轨。6月份，我们将加快车辆生产和交付工作，预计2022年第二季度的总交付量为23000到25000辆。
Since the second half of March, a new wave of coronavirus outbreaks in certain regions in China has impacted our vehicle production and deliveries. In April and May, we delivered 5,074 and 7,024 vehicles respectively. Starting from June, while the supply chain and the vehicle production have basically returned to normal, our vehicle deliveries have also gotten back on track in Shanghai and several other important markets. We will continue to work closely with our supply chain partners to further improve the overall supply chain production capacity and accelerate vehicle deliveries. We expect the total delivery in the second quarter of 2022 to be between 23,000 to 25,000 units.
尽管面临疫情的挑战，蔚来产品需求依然旺盛。 5月份新增订单创下历史新高，尤其是 ET7 的订单表现持续强劲。我们相信新产品的推出将带动需求的持续增长。同时，近期中国各级政府也陆续出台了促进汽车消费和鼓励购置新能源车型的积极政策，这将进一步促进高端智能电动汽车的换购和增购需求。接下来，我们将 继续提升全供应链的产能，我们有信心实现下半年交付量的快速攀升。
Despite the outbreak, our products have continued to witness a robust demand. Our order intake stays strong, especially for ET7, and reached a new high in May. We believe the launch of new products will drive continuous order growth. In the meantime, governments at all levels in China have also introduced positive policies to encourage vehicle consumption and purchase of electric vehicles. This will further promote the uptrading and new purchase of premium smart electric vehicles. Going forward, we will further increase the overall supply chain production capacity, and we're confident of ramping up our deliveries at a much faster pace in the second half of this year.
毛利率方面，行业面临电池、原材料以及芯片价格的上涨，我们的整车毛利率也受到影响。一季度 未来整车毛利率为 18.1%。二季度电池成本继续显著上涨，在4月份达到高点，为二季度整车毛利率带来很大挑战。为了缓解成本上涨压力，我们进行了产品价格调整等一系列措施。随着新产品交付、单车收入提升以及产量爬坡，我们预计毛利率从第三季度开始反弹。
In terms of the vehicle gross margin, the whole industry is faced with the rising cost of batteries, raw materials, and chips, which has also affected our vehicle margin. In the first quarter, our vehicle margin stood at 18.1%. As the battery cost continued to surge and peaked in April, the vehicle margin in the second quarter will be under even higher pressure. To mitigate the impact of the rising material costs, we have taken a series of countermeasures, such as adjusting product prices. With the deliveries of new products, higher revenue per vehicle, and increasing production output, we expect the vehicle margin to start bouncing back from the third quarter.
2022年5月20日，蔚来在新加坡交易所主板上市。新加坡上市是蔚来又一重要。
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what I said. If you have been following this live stream from the beginning, the Q2 margins will look even worse, like the bottom line.
On May 20th, 2022, NIO was listed on the main board of the Singapore Exchange, which marks another important milestone of NIO. With that, we have further enhanced our footing in the global capital markets, which lets us better connect with the investors and serve the investors from around the world. It is also of great significance for our global business development.
此外，根据恒生指数有限公司的公告，蔚来将于6月13日被纳入恒生科技指数。
I hope you're okay if I sometimes dial down when he talks Chinese to add a little bit of my commentary there.
In addition, according to the announcement made by the Hang Seng Indexes Company Limited, NIO will be included in the Hang Seng Tech Index and the Hang Seng Composite Index starting from June 13th.
接下来，我跟大家交流一下公司研发和运营方面的一些重点工作。
Next, I would like to share with you some updates on our recent operations and R&D.
新产品与核心技术的研发始终是蔚来长期发展战略的重点。目前，各项工作正在按计划有序的推进。
Research and development of new products and core technologies has been one of NIO's long-term strategic focuses. We have been making positive progresses on various related fronts.
3月28日 ，ET7 正式开启交付。卓越的驾乘体验受到首批用户和媒体的好评。自交付 ET7 以来，我们持续通过 FOTA 升级。
Well, how many of you guys are actually understanding Chinese? How many Chinese listeners are here?
功能基于全新一代语音交互情感。
I can also keep talking Chinese if you want. 你们是中国人来的吗？
全站自研算法的辅助驾驶系统。
要不要我给你们翻译？还是不要？
三季度，我们将基于与合作伙伴共同开发的自研高
Liben is sounding with a stronger voice, confident. That's what I like about it so far.
通过强大的软硬
Although
件
he's
平
given
台，
us
全站自
pretty
研的算
negative
法，
news this
端到
quarter
端的数据
and
闭环和
possibly
运
next
营
quarter.
能力。NT 2.0 实现了快速迭代升级的能力，为后续开发在更多场景的 NAD 服务。 实现超越期待的自动驾驶体验，打下了坚实的基础。
On March 28th, we started to deliver ET7, whose extraordinary handling and riding experience has been well recognized by the users and the media. Since the delivery of ET7, we have made fast iterations and released more smart features via FOTA updates on a continuous basis. We have introduced over 200 new features on the NT 2.0 platform with the next generation voice interaction and emotion engine technologies. Nomi's interactive experience is comprehensively upgraded. The driver assistance system, powered by NIO's full-stack in-house algorithm, has achieved outstanding performance in external reviews and the field tests. In the third quarter, we will release NOP Plus based on the HD map co-developed with our partner, enabled by the powerful software and hardware platform, full-stack in-house algorithm, and end-to-end closed-loop data collection and operations capabilities. NT 2.0 is capable of fast iteration and upgrade, laying a solid foundation for releasing NAD services in more scenarios and providing the autonomous driving experience beyond expectations.
4月29日 ET5 的首批全公益
That's what I'm talking about in my latest ADAS or autonomous driving videos. This will be an iterative process, but I've got the feeling that now talking more and more about this, and of course that's an important part of the strategy and future revenues.
On April 29, the first ET5 tooling trial build rolled off the production line in F2 at NIO Park. The team is working towards the final stage of mass production of ET5, and the delivery is expected to start this September.
本月我们将发布基于 NT 2.0 平台的全新大五座 SUV 车型 ES7， 并将于8月下旬开启量产交付。
This month, we will unveil ES7, a brand new mid-large 5-seater SUV based on the NT 2.0, and will start the delivery in late August.
我们也在持续加大动力电池相关领域的投入。目前，蔚来拥有超过400人组成的电池相关团队，深入参与电池的材料、电芯与整包设计、电池管理系统、制造工艺等研发工作，全面建立与增强电池体系化研发和工业化能力。我们相信这些投入将提升蔚来产品的长期竞争力和盈利能力。
We will continue to step up our investments in battery-related fields. As of now, we have over 400 employees working on battery-related technologies, including battery materials, cell and pack design, battery management systems, and manufacturing processes. We aim to build and enhance our comprehensive battery R&D and industrialization capabilities to improve the competitiveness and the profitability of our products in the long run.
产能方面，江淮蔚来 F1 工厂目前已经
This is actually a really interesting aspect which I haven't touched upon on this channel so far. NIO seems to be really moving away from outsourcing battery manufacturing in some ways. So there's no clear picture yet how this will look like. I only talked about the hybrid solid-state batteries. But yeah, there sounds to be a little bit of a beef maybe with, or an issue with CATL. We've seen them talking with BYD as well. So interesting which parts they will do and which part they keep outsourcing.
F1 has fully resumed its capacity to the level before the recent outbreak. In addition, we will further ramp up the production output on a gradual basis to support the mass production of the new product. NIO F2 at NIO Park has completed the production line installation and tooling and has entered into the production validation phase. It will be put into operation from the third quarter this year. It only took us 12 months from kicking off construction to rolling off the first tooling trial build in F2, which is a record construction speed in the industry.
销售和服务网络方面，我们现有300。
Yeah, you see, so these are the aspects that are talking here in this earnings call that you don't get in any of the reports, and it's also not in numbers, right? And that's what's happening, yeah, under the hood in a way.
In terms of the sales and service network, we now have 381 new houses and new spaces in 152 cities, as well as 247 new service centers and delivery centers in 149 cities worldwide.
在充换电网络方面， 我们已经建成超过960座换电站，覆盖全球197个城市。同时，我们已经累计部署829座超充站和超过4140根目的地充电桩。
With regards to charging and swapping networks, we've installed over 960 battery swapping stations in 197 cities. So far, we have 829 supercharging stations and 1,140 destination chargers.
销售服务和充换电网络的持续布局，将为未来的品牌知名度、用户满意度。
Maybe we get a question by an analyst about the costs of battery swapping.
The continued deployment of our sales, service, and power network will bring long-term benefits to our brand awareness, user satisfaction rate, and the sales growth.
在全球市场方面，在进一步完善挪威市场布局及提高用户满意度的同时，相关团队正在加速推进产品和服务体系在德国、荷兰、瑞典、丹麦的落地准备工作。
With respect to the global market, while further expanding our sales and service network and improving the user satisfaction in Norway, our teams have been accelerating preparations to launch our products and services in Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Denmark.
大众市场新品牌的产品研发及投产正在稳步推进中。5月10日，蔚来与合肥市就 NIO Park 整车2期和关键核心零部件配套项目签署战略合作协议。根据协议，蔚来开始规划和准备新品牌产品的产能建设工作。
In terms of our mass market brand, our product development and the production preparation are in steady progress. On May 10th, NIO signed a strategic cooperation agreement with Hefei on the second phase of a vehicle production plant and the facilities for key components at NIO Park. The agreement marks the start of the planning and preparation of the production capacity of the new brand.
未来源自清朗天空的愿景，我们致力于在环境和社会公益方面进行持续的投入，为全球可持续发展。
Yeah, Dirk, I could do that. I could try.
NIO originates from
not sure if it
a
works.
vision filled with the blue skies. We are fully committed to making continuous investments in environmental protection and social welfare, and contributing to global sustainable development.
自去年12月发起 Clean Park。
So usually I make this in smaller companies like Cfo or Xinlei, where they take my questions, but with a big company like NIO, they have all those analysts, many bank analysts, and not sure if they would take my question.
WWF 将作为 Clean Park 的共同发起方之一，与蔚来携手推动在中国乃至全球自然保护地构建清洁低碳的能源自循环体系。
Since we announced the Clean Park, a global ecosystem co-construction initiative last December, NIO has been actively cooperating with several organizations to roll out various projects to support national parks and natural reserves. On April 22, NIO reached a strategic cooperation with the Worldwide Fund for Nature, who has joined hands with us in establishing a clean and low carbon energy circulation system in national parks and natural reserves in China and beyond.
虽然在2022年上半年经历了很多挑战，2022年仍然是蔚来在新产品、核心技术、全球市场和大众品牌坚决投入和进行布局的一年。下半年，蔚来新产品交付与产能提升将大大提速。我们对未来2022年全年的市场表现充满信心与期待。
Although we went through many challenges in the first half of 2022, 2022 is still a critical year for NIO to make committed investments and efforts in new products, core technologies, global market entry, and the mass market brand. In the second half of this year, we will accelerate our new product delivery and the capacity expansion. We are confident of and look forward to realizing satisfying results in 2022.
感谢大家的支持。现在 Steven 将为大家介绍2022年第一季度的财务业绩。有请 Steven。
As always, thank you for your support. With that, I will now turn the call over to Steven to provide the financial details for the quarter. Steven, please go ahead.
Thank you, William.
Now they're going through all these financials. I have the feeling they need to speed up to finish before the market is opening. Usually it takes quite some time to answer all the analyst questions.
I encourage listeners to refer to our earliest press release, which is posted online for additional details. Our total revenues in the first quarter were 9.9 billion RMB, representing an increase of 24.2% year-over-year and remaining stable quarter-over-quarter. Our total revenues are made of two parts: vehicle sales and other sales. Vehicle sales in the first quarter were 9.2 billion RMB, representing an increase of 24.8% year-over-year and remained relatively stable quarter-over-quarter. Increase in vehicle sales year-over-year was mainly attributed to higher delivery. Other sales in the first quarter were 0.7 billion RMB, representing an increase of 15.6% year-over-year and remained relatively stable quarter-over-quarter. The increase in other sales year-over-year was mainly attributed to the increased sales of service and energy packages and others in line with the incremental vehicle sales in the first quarter of 2022, which was partially offset by the decrease of revenue from battery upgrade services. Gross margin in the first quarter was 14.6%, compared with 19.5% in the first quarter of 2021 and 17.2% in the fourth quarter of 2021. The decrease of gross margin year-over-year was mainly attributed to the decrease of vehicle margin and reduction in other sales margin resulting from expanded investment in power and service network. The decrease of gross margin quarter-over-quarter was mainly attributed to the decrease of vehicle margin. More specifically, vehicle margin in the first quarter was 18.1%, compared with 21.2% in the first quarter of 2021 and 20.9% in the fourth quarter of 2021. The decrease of vehicle margin year-over-year was mainly driven by the lower average selling price due to changes in our product mix. The decrease of vehicle margin quarter-over-quarter was mainly attributed to the increased battery cost per unit. R&D expenses in the first quarter were 1.76 billion RMB, representing an increase of 156.6% year-over-year and remained stable quarter-over-quarter. The increase of R&D expenses year-over-year was mainly attributed to the increased personnel costs in research and development functions, as well as the incremental design and development costs for new products and technologies. SG&A expenses in the first quarter were 2.01 billion RMB, with an increase of 68.3% year-over-year and a decrease of 14.6% quarter-over-quarter. The increase in SG&A expenses year-over-year, primarily due to the increase in personnel costs in sales and service functions and the costs related to the sales and service network expansion. The decrease in SG&A expenses quarter-over-quarter was mainly attributed to decrease of marketing and promotion expenses, especially the marketing and promotion expenses incurred from the hosting of NIO Day in December 2021, as well as decrease of professional services expenses. Loss from operations in the first quarter was 2.19 billion RMB, representing an increase of 39.7% year-over-year, and a decrease of 10.5% quarter-over-quarter. Net loss in the first quarter was 1.78 billion RMB, representing an increase of 295.3% year-over-year, and a decrease of 16.8% quarter-over-quarter. Net loss attributable to NIO's ordinary shareholders in the first quarter was 1.83 billion RMB, representing a decrease of 62.6% year-over-year, and a decrease of 16.3% quarter-over-quarter. Our balance cash and cash equivalents, restricted cash and short-term investment was 53.3 billion RMB as of March 31st, 2022. Now, this concludes our prepared remarks. I will now turn the call over to the operator to facilitate our Q&A session.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. If you wish to ask a question, please press star one on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to withdraw your request, please press the pound hash.
Finally, the interesting part begins. Let's hope to have some decent questions, maybe around battery cost. Hopefully the outlook for the full year, that would be my question, maybe margin outlook, battery swapping plans and costs aligned to globalization, that sort of stuff.
各位管理者好啊，谢谢给我这个第一个发问的机会。那我先用中文讲一遍，再自己帮忙翻译一下。我这里主要就是两个问题，第一个就是二季度一个整车的毛利率的一个预测，我们怎么看啊？因为我看了一下，就是这个二季度的这个高毛利率的这个车型销量，应该有可能是占比总销量大概是36%。在二季度，一季度只有17% 的销量，是来自于高毛利的产品，就是这是第一个利好的。第二个就想请教一下这个二季度这里的这个delivery，有多少的百分比是加价的这个已经加了价的这个车型啊？因为我们知道早前我们加了价，但是这个 order backlog 还是很强，那所以就是说有可能部分的销量是没有加价的。这样就可能这个 margin 会比较低，所以就想知道加了价的这个占 2Q 的这个 volume portion 大概有多大这是第一个问题。然后第二个问题我就还是想问一问，就是说三季度的话有没有可能在这个48000台或者5万台的这个总产能因为我们看如果是6月份如果回到12000、13000的话，那就是7、8月、9月份15000、16000、17000这就很容易是48000。那而且呢，我们现在是3个旧产品但是进入6、7月份和下半年就变成6个新产品了，包括现在的这个866都是一个 midterm facelift， 再加上 ET7、ET5 和这个 ES7， 所以就是3款旧产品变成6款新产品，就想知道这个量会有多大的一个爆发。而且第二我们也看见就是说就是在我们的这个 supply chain 跟特斯拉的这个 overlap 非常大那我们也看见这个特斯拉这个6月份的第一周这个 recovery 也是很强的，然后5月份的这个环比 recovery 也是很强的。那就是说我们可不可以用这个作为一个 reference 来判断这个3季度的量可能可以到48000这样So I have two questions. One is the second quarter GP margin outlook. So look like the high margin products as a percentage of sales in second quarter could reach about 37% versus 17% in the first quarter. I think this is one of the positive that may potentially lift up the GP margin trend. And secondly is that that there has been some MSRP hike recently, and we would like to know how much of the sales volume from the second quarter has been price hiked versus the first quarter. Obviously, this is the first question. And the second question is that our new motorcycle suggests that our current aging products, 3 products, is going to turn into 6 new products into the next 6 to 12 months. So my question is whether the third quarter production capacity can reach above 48,000 units. Since by referring to Tesla, we saw a strong week-on-week and month-on-month recovery from the past weeks. And my understanding is that a lot of our auto parts suppliers are overlapped with a Tesla. So if Tesla recover fast, would that mean that we are going to enjoy the similar pace into June and the third quarter? Thank you， 谢谢。
好，谢谢 Jeff。第一个问题就是我们从4月份开始呢，我们和我们的电池的供应商 CATL， 根据我们新的协议呢，我们的电池的成本会根据原材料去联动啊。简单来讲，我们是根据这个电池的材料的一个 index 去浮动这个电池的这个价格。所以从2季度的话呢，我们电池成本的上涨确实是比较高的比1季度还是要高不少啊。那当然具体的数字因为是根据这个电池材料去联动的，所以我们基本上是根据这个月的上个月的电池材料的价格去决定这个月的这个交付的电池包的这么一个成本。那我们当然看到了5月份的话呢，这个价格比4月份已经有一些下降啊，从trend的角度来讲是在往下走的。那么但是确实2季度的毛利的压力是比较大的。我们的加价的量呢是基本上要3季度才能这些车，因为我们都是按订单生产的，这些订单大部分都需要3季度才能去交付加价的这一部分。现在我们交付的订单基本上都还是加价之前的这个订单当然就像您刚才讲的，我们的这个高毛利一些的 NT2 的产品呢，它的这个组合确实是逐步的会增加。那我们2季度有 ET7， 那么我们在6月份的产能 ET7 的产能会上来一些，当然3季度就会能够基本上能够保证这个正常的这样的一个生产。那所以第一个问题就是简单来讲2季度的毛利压力是比较大的，但目前来看的话呢我们这个根据目前掌握的电池材料的这样的一个压力的话，我们预计这个比1季度是要下降一些。那么加价的销量我们需要3季度才能去体现。Eve 你先翻译一下。
Thank you for your question, Jeff. Starting from April, we actually updated our agreement with our battery supplier CATL, and right now our battery cost is connected with the raw material indexes. So basically, it means that if in the second quarter we can see the battery cost is going to significantly increase compared with that of the first quarter, and this is going to affect our vehicle gross margin performance. But there's going to be some latencies. The battery prices increase in the prior month is going to be reflected in the battery cost of the later months. And this is going to incorporate it into our vehicle gross margin performance. According to the current forecast and the market trend, we can see the battery cost is going down a little bit starting from May. And we have also taken some measures, for example, increasing our product prices. This is going to help us improve our performance in the third quarter. Right now, we are still delivering vehicles without the price adjustment, and we expect to start to deliver the vehicles with the price adjustment starting from the third quarter, because our business model is make to order or order to delivery. So just now you have also mentioned that our products with a higher gross margin is also going to kick in terms of the performance of the vehicle gross margin, just as the ET7 that is launched in the second quarter, and we expect the production of ET7 is going to gradually ramp up starting from June, and then starting from the third quarter it's going to maintain at a normal level. Overall speaking, we believe our vehicle gross margin is going to face higher pressure in the second quarter. So this is mainly due to the battery cost impact. the vehicle gross margin of the second quarter is going to be lower compared with that of the first quarter, but with the price adjustment, we expect we are going to start to deliver the vehicles with higher prices starting from the third quarter, which is going to contribute to our vehicle gross margin.
第二个问题，我们在3季度，我们其实现在的话呢，我们第一工厂的扩产工作已经开始，给我们6月份的产能已经在贡献了当然它扩产的那个产线也需要个时间去爬坡，所以从一个整车生产的角度来讲，您刚才说的这个数对我们已经不是瓶颈了，需求的角度来讲的话，我们认为也不是问题。现在的主要还是在供应链端，因为供应链就像您刚才讲的，供应链这个确实包括芯片，包括有一些供应链的产能提升，还是有一些瓶颈的。我们当然还是对3季度的交付量，我们还是非常有信心的如果这个照现在的这样一个趋势的话。
With the production capacity expansion in the F1, we expect that this is going to start to improve the overall production output starting from June. Of course, it will need some time to gradually ramp up the production, but we believe the vehicle production is not going to be a bottleneck, and the demand is not an issue for us. The main challenges that we're facing right now is the supply chain, especially in terms of the chipsets and also the production capacity of our suppliers. We are very confident of our delivery performance starting from the third quarter.
谢谢 Jeff. Thank you.
That was a very good
Thank you.
reply, I
And
would
next
say.
question
Maybe
comes
one of the
from
most positive so
Michelle
far.
from Morgan Stanley.
No issue with
Please
demand.
ask
Demand is great and will be not manufacturing constraint anymore, but guiding to Q3.
会有一个比较明显的恢复。那我这边2个很快的问题，第一个是有关于订单因为刚才可能在 presentation 里面 William 也提到，我们5月份的这个新增订单恢复得非常强劲了，所以是不是可以针对这个细节再稍微分享一下？就首先是不是大多的这些新增订单都是以 ET7 为主？那这个是不是也代表了我们原先8代的车型的需求这边是有个比较明显的放缓？那我们是不是会有一些中期改款在2季度或者3季度推出？那另外的话，就是想问一下，我们这个所谓的这个订单目前是不是有包含 ET5 这一款，是不是也有很大的贡献？这是第一个有关于订单的问题。那第二个问题是有关于电池因为刚才简报中也提到了，就是说现在未来已经有超过400项的一些电池的技术，那涵盖了电池芯、电池包、BMS， 还有更多这个创新的技术。所以中长期来讲，我们在电池这一块的摄入，会不会考虑到会有一些电池的生产，或者是说我们会寻求专业代工厂的协助，依照这个未来的这个专利以及这个技术去做一个电池生产，那基本上都是基于我们自己本身的研发所以是这2个问题。那so let me translate my questions. The first question is about orders. So could you please provide further details? Do orders of ET7 dominate the current order intake, while the demand for incumbent SUV are falling more meaningfully? And are we going to have a split for our current SUV model in Tyson? And you mentioned the record order book. Does that include the orders of ET5? My second question is about the batteries. Because during presentation, I think William mentioned NIO now has more than 400 related battery-related technology covering cell, pack, BMS, and more. Will NIO consider involving more in battery production over time, or for professional battery OEMs vendors help to produce the battery based on NIO's own patents and the technology? So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
好，谢谢 Tim。第一个问题关于订单
Man, it's annoying. It's 2022 and those analysts still don't have a proper phone and internet connection to ask the questions. At least Li Bin has a good microphone today. Let's see how he responds.
稳定的还是稳定中还是有一些增长的。当然你刚才讲到了我们会不会有一些年终的改款，我们会有一些新的这个智能的像硬件的这个应用，软件的应用，到现在的这个866上，我们近期会发布这方面的一些这个计划。第一个问题你先那个义父翻译一下。
Thank you, Tim, for your question. Regarding your first question for order, basically in May, our order growth is quite significant, and this actually includes the order intake for the existing ES8, ES6, and the EC6. The overall order intake performance of the existing ES8, ES6, and the EC6 is quite steady, and we have witnessed certain growth. You have also mentioned whether we are planning for some upgrades of our existing models. We are planning for incorporating some smart hardware and some new software features for the upgraded version of the existing models.
我们 ET5 在去年 NIO Day 发布以后，我们在目前来讲的话，我们订单仍然是持续在增加。那总体上来说的话呢，因为近期有一些车展，所以我们也看到 ET5 还是非常受欢迎，ET5 的订单的情况是还是非常好的。
After we launched the ET5 in last year's NIO Day, we have witnessed the steady growth of the order intake. Recently, because of the auto shows and exhibitions, we have witnessed a very positive order performance of the ET5.
第二个问题就是我们说的是有超过400人的研发团队这个我们团队的 size 在过去的这个一段时间，我们在电池研发方面的投入是显著增加了比较多。那我们现在总体的方向呢是在24年的我们在下一代的车上面，我们会有全新的这个800伏这个高压平台的快充的。
At least some question about the order books, and so far pretty solid, I would say, especially regarding the older models, which is always kind of perceived as lagging. But seems fine according to the management. So, yeah, I think that's the reassurance that investors want to see. So far, so good.
包括成本的优势、性能的优势、安全方面的优势我们相信都是很大的。那么这方面的话呢，如果今天去说的话，我们的计划当然是在24年的这个下半年，我们要投产我们新的这样的一个电池包。但具体的制造策略我们从长期的方向上来讲呢，我们肯定是一个自制加上外采的这样的一个战略。在这一点上我们是非常坚定的。我们认为对于增加公司的竞争力、产品的竞争力和毛利的利润的盈利的能力都是很重要的。这也是我们在投资和研发方面的一个重点。
Just now, for the 400, this is actually about the R&D teams focusing on the battery technologies. We have over 400 employees. For this, we plan to leverage our R&D capabilities in terms of the battery to launch a 800-volt high voltage battery pack, which will also support the battery swapping technologies in 2024. We understand that this is going to bring many innovative technologies and revolutionary solutions. We believe that this unified pack concept is going to redefine the battery technologies in terms of the battery cost and the battery safety. Our plan right now is to start the production of this new next generation battery pack in the second half of 2024. Our long-term battery strategy is going to be a combination of in-house production and also outsourcing. We believe that this long-term strategy is going to benefit the overall competitiveness and the vehicle gross margin, as well as the profitability of NIO's products. This is also going to be our investment.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Our next question comes from
This was actually very, very insightful. Usually they use NIO Day to announce something like this, a new battery based on 800 volts technology. And that's actually something which I leaked in another video based on a patent that I saw by NIO. So it would be interesting to learn more about this and yeah, taking parts of the production and R&D in-house. Speaking also about reducing costs for the batteries, that's really, really interesting. That's something new, something I've never heard of from NIO directly before. That's cool.
那么是不是说四季度毛利率会进一步改善，是因为有换了芯片之后的一个涨价？好，这就是我的问题。我翻译一下。I actually want to quantify the margin because you actually say that second quarter will be a low margin. Can you see what's the level of the decline in margin? Because you actually raised the price for current products by around 10,000 RMB. Can I assume that is the decline in the gross profit margin? Gross profit just 10,000 RMB. You also mentioned that in the third quarter we're back to normal. What's the back to normal you're referring to? You refer to the 18% gross margin in the first quarter or the last peak level around 21%? Meanwhile, I suppose you will further increase the price for the upcoming better semiconductor intelligent cockpit version of the current products. Is that going to be another increase in the gross margin? Thank you.
好，谢谢王斌。我们这个涨价的这一部分呢，基本上需要到3季度才能去体现。我前面也讲了，因为我们涨价的这一部分的话呢，这个前边涨价之前的一些订单，我们现在还在交付那些订单，所以涨价还是需要在3季度才能去体现。那么2季度电池成本确实增加的是比较多一些，但具体的这个受的影响的话呢，这个我们现在还有一些还有一些不确定性吧。那我们如果从现在来看的话呢，这个是比1万要多一些的啊，这个我们从目前来看的话啊，但具体是多少的话，我们可能还需要看看这个近期的材料的这个价格的变化因为我们已经是一个联动的这样的一个方式所以这是2季度的一个情况。3季度的话呢会恢复，其实这里面也是确实有一点不确定性啊，就是3季度我们虽然涨了价，但是我们需要看这个电池的上游材料的这样的一个趋势当我们3季度这个第2代平台的车它能增加一些毛利所以总体上来讲，当然我们是能看到3季度肯定会反弹，但是反弹到底哪个水平，我们今天确实还有一些不确定性，因为这个和以前不一样的地方在于，我们现在这个电池的成本跟这个原材料是关联的，不像我们以前是一个 fix 的价格比较好预测，这个主要不确定性来自于这个地方。
Thank you, Bing, for your question. Regarding the price increase for our products, previously I have also explained that this is going to be reflected in our vehicle gross margin in the third quarter, because right now we're still delivering vehicles without the adjusted price. For the second quarter, the battery cost is higher than that of the first quarter, but the impact of this is still uncertain. Specifically, we believe it's going to be higher than the 10,000 RMB you have just mentioned. But we believe there's still many uncertainties that we need to weigh out a little bit, because just like I mentioned, right now the battery cost of our products is actually based on the raw material trend and the index. So it means that for the third quarter, we will probably see some trend of the raw material cost going down a little bit, and with our vehicle gross margin improvement based on the new technology platform 2.0, the vehicle gross margin in the third quarter, we believe is going to bounce back. But there are still many uncertainties because the battery cost is very difficult to forecast and determine at this moment.
好，谢谢王斌。
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Mingxin Li from Bank of America. Please go ahead.
威廉还有各位领导晚上好。那我这边就是2个问题哦。那第一个问题呢，是关于就是因为今年的话，就是有3款新车跟3款中改，那所以下半年这个volume growth 应该是蛮强的。那想了解一下，说我们管理层现在有没有对明年的这个新车型，还有包括866是不是今年改款，然后明年是一个换代的节奏，可不可以就是就这个product cycle 可以多给我们一些提示？这是第一个问题。然后第二个问题呢，是关于这个我们的这个 other revenue 的部分，因为其实过去几个季度的话，可以看到这个 other revenue 通常都是逐季增加的。那我想这个跟我们的这个 client base 一直往上走应该有关系。那有注意到这个一季度的话other revenue 稍微掉下一点，不晓得是不是跟这个疫情风控有一点关系。然后另外就是 other revenue 它的毛利率也是一季度跟去年4季度也一样，就是负超过 30%。那想了解一下是不是因为这个也是 battery swap station 这些开的比较多所以这个一下子产能利用率还没拉上来之前它的这个毛利率会比较低。那管理层这边有没有预期说这个 other revenue 的这个毛利率大概会用什么样的一个这个节奏来改善？谢谢。那我翻译一下。My first question, could you also give us some guidance regarding your potential product pipeline for 2023, especially for the A66? Will you consider to launch the new generation in next year? Second question is regarding your services and others business. First, the revenue slightly declined QOQ. Is it because of the COVID impact? And secondly, the gross margin of this business is also not very good for the quarter. Is this because of the lower utilization when you build a new battery swap station? And what do you expect the margin improvement for this business? 谢谢。
好，谢谢 Min。第一个问题，我们现在的这个在产的这个车型，明年当然都会切换到这个 NT2 的平台上去，这个当然是我们的计划。那么这是肯定的。那么第二个问题的话呢，我们请 Stanley 回答一下。
Thank you, Ming, for your question. Of course, for the existing models, including the ES8, ES6, and the EC6, our plan is to upgrade all those models to the NT2 platform in the next year.
Hi, Ming, this is Stanley. The other operating loss mainly because the increase in depreciation and also operating expenses related to our power swap stations. And in this year, we will continue to build the battery charging and the swapping network, which can bring the unique experience to our users and can benefit the further improvement of our user satisfaction and also brand image. So from the short term, I think the other loss will increase along with the expansion of the network. And from the long run, as numbers of the delivery and also users grow, we will make our charging and swapping services more efficient. The losses arising from the charging and swapping service will gradually narrow down. And our innovative business models, including New Life and also ADAS, can also bring extra gross profit and booked in this account. Thanks, me.
Thank you. And next question comes from Nick Lai from JP Morgan. Please ask your question.
Okay, unfortunately, this wasn't very detailed, but yeah, I expected a kind of a question about the battery swapping cost, and he also mentioned NIO Live revenues for the first time and the narrowing cost down the road in battery swapping. So of course we know that, but yeah, it's one of the first times I hear them speaking about this in a conference call like this. So maybe another reassurance, and for the analysts of these banks, something to know. Maybe they should become more aggressive about talking about this, like the prospects of NIO Live, the e-commerce revenues, the business model behind NIO houses, and then also ultimately, what can be done with the battery swap stations in terms of buffering energy, having arbitrage trades between energies coming in at low cost from renewable energies like wind, solar, and so on, and then selling it into the grid when there is demand for it, and at the same time balancing, loading the batteries, and yeah, all of the effects in terms of prolonged battery life and things like that. So maybe not the time for the analyst calls for going very deep into that, but maybe they could have some certain event for that. Maybe, I don't know if NIO Day fits for that, but for example, Tesla is doing those investor presentations about AI, about the Tesla robots and these things. Maybe NIO could do something similar about their own ecosystem, because it's very unique.
And second is a quick update on mass market brand strategy. Thank you.
好，谢谢 Nick。第一个问题是，供应芯片的话呢，确实它是经常有一些不确定性的这样的一些短缺出现。
So now I caught up a little bit question by the
每辆
analyst,
车
but I
有
guess
1000
we
多颗
get
芯
the
片。那有那么
translation of the
很
answer
少
soon,
数
so that
的，
should
那
be
么
sufficient.
大概比如说，它可能每一段时间出现的这种短缺可能有点不太一样，这个完全是根据这个Tier 1它的上游的这个情况去定的，都是一些基础性的芯片，比如说 TI 的或者 NXP， 或者说这个等等这样的一些英飞凌这样的一些，他们有一些，因为他们的芯片的型号很多啊，所以呢。它有一些不确定性，很难说是某一种啊。如果我们是知道某一种的话，这个事情就好办了很多啊。它确实是有一些不确定性的，这样的一些有那么1-2-4颗，基本上来讲，在我们的 risk 的单子里面，一般来说都有那么1-2-4颗的芯片啊，1-2-4种的那么芯片，可能这个月和下个月的是不太一样的啊。当我们所以要不停的去解决，不停的去解决。那总体上来说的话呢，我们也找到了这样的一些方法吧，就通过各种方法去解决这个问题。那当我们对这个订单的角度来讲，我们原来的计划里面也是下半年开始爬升产量，所以我们提前在去年我们就在 book 这样的一些供应啊，所以总体上来说的话，我们相信这个有 risk， 当然还算可以管理啊，基本上是这么一个情况。6月份的话的产量倒跟芯片没有太大的关系，主要还是一个正常的爬坡的过程。Eve.
Yeah, thank you for your question. There are many uncertainties in terms of the chip supply because in our vehicle we probably have over 1,000 chips, and the chip shortage situation for those 1,000 chips may vary from time to time, and this is totally depends on the upstream suppliers of the Tier 1 suppliers of NIO. Many of the chip shortages actually caused by the basic chipsets used by those Tier 1 suppliers or the upstream suppliers of those Tier 1 suppliers. For example, like TI and Infineon, they provide various kind of chips to the OEMs, and it's very difficult to actually identify specific risky chips that we're going to face a shortage. That is why we do have a risky chip list normally it includes probably around 1 to 20 different kind of chips, and this list may change month to month. Of course, we will try to mitigate all those risks with different kind of measures. Previously, our plan is to expand our production capacity starting from the second half of this year. So that's why starting from last year, we have already started to work closely with our suppliers to make sure we can secure sufficient supplies for our products. We have some risks in terms of the chip supply, but we believe this is actually manageable and is under control. For the production capacity of in the month of June, this is actually not specifically related to the chip shortage or other supply chain risks. This is just a part of the normal ramp-up process for the production capacity expansion.
Yeah， 第二个问题是我们的 massive 的这个 market 的这个 brand 的一些。
That's interesting. Talking down the chip shortage a little bit, not as the main issue there, and rather a normal ramp-up phase. Interesting insight. I don't know, like chip shortages come and go, and NIO didn't manage them particularly well so far. So kind of interesting to see these quite positive remarks around this issue. Not very, they could be more tentative, more defensive about this issue. And so they make it sound like it's now more about actually just really scaling up the plant after those downtimes, and for the second plant, obviously about making it up and running in the first place. So this should be good for investors looking at Q3, Q4, and next year. Investors should be long-term oriented. Q1 and Q2 is basically already history. You should know those negatives already.
Q3、Q4或者 Q4 能到30万每吨啊，跟现在比的话，大体上可能会下降20%以上，20%到30%，这也是有这样的一些预测。这个镍的价格也会也看到了一些下降的这样的一些预测。所以总体上来讲的话呢，这个确实这个是还有一些不确定性嘛，但总体的趋势应该是在往下走的。
Regarding the second question of the battery, starting from April, our battery cost is linked together with the raw materials of the batteries in the market. We can see the raw material cost actually peaked in April, and we started to see some trend of going down, specifically for the lithium carbonate. In China, we have already started to see there are more resources for the lithium, and there are some companies trying to mine the lithium to make sure they can supply to the market and meet the demand. So I believe the general consensus of the industry is already peaked in April, so it's going to gradually go down. But of course, people have a different forecast in terms of what is going to be the final cost of those raw materials. Some people may think that the lithium carbonate is going to go down to around probably 30,000 per ton. This means that we are going to reduce the cost of the lithium carbonate by 20 to 30%, and we also have a similar forecast for the nickel material as well. So we believe that the general trend is the cost of those battery materials is going down, but and it's not going to go up again.
那么第二个问题就是我们 massive market 的这个brand。按照我们目前的计划的话呢，是24年的下半年我们会交付啊，那么会搭载我们第3代的 NT 3.0 的技术。那我们目前的这个我们希望终端的这个价格的定位差不太多，主力的产品是在20到30万人民币啊。那么可换电的架构
So now Lieben is already talking about the next platform in mass market. Let's see what this is. Also sounded good. That they kind of saw inflation peaking in April. Maybe that is similar to the US inflation data. We'll see tomorrow.
The mass market brand. Our plan is to start the delivery of the products of the mass market brand starting from the second half of 2024. This product is going to be based on the new technology platform 3.0. And we believe the mainstream products of the mass market brand is going to be at the price range from 200,000 to 300,000. Of course, the mass market brand products will also support battery swapping, and we are going to use our in-house developed and manufactured batteries for the mass market brand products.
当然也会支持高压快充的技术了。
Of course, this platform is also going to support high voltage technologies, and we believe with all those advanced technologies and competitive pricing, those products under the mass market brand are going to be very competitive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Paul Gong from UBS. Please ask your question.
好，谢谢让我提问题啊，就两个问题。第一个问题来说是关于 ES7的因为像以前 ET7 和 ET5 的话，从发布到交付间隔的时间都比较长为什么这一次从 ES7 来说它的交付还在那个 ET5 的
Couple of earnings calls back, Li Bin said that NIO is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, in the industry to bring out new platforms and models. This really confirms it, like a new platform next year already. This is mind-boggling speed. And this new platform, mass market, in-house battery technology, supporting battery swapping, and the 800-volt battery tech. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe something interesting coming up at NIO Day this year. I mean, there are many question marks about mass market. I'm not the biggest fan of that they're doing that, but they seem to be more and more convicted to actually do it.
Let me translate.
Let's see how they do it.
Question is related to ES7. Why from unveiling launch until delivery, it seems to be a lot faster than the previous ET7 or ET5. And how do you think about the cannibalization versus ES8, ES6, and EC6, given they are all kind of SUVs of similar size? My second question is regarding the supply chain preparation for the NT2 platform. Currently, it seems that the ET7 production remains to be relatively slow in terms of ramp up and with a pretty long waiting period. In view, we are going to have a ET5 with larger volume and the ES7 in the pipeline. Have we done enough work to secure the key component supply to enable the ramp up of the overall NT2 platform models? Thank you.
好，谢谢 Paul。第一个问题，事实上来讲的话呢，我们ES7的研发工作是一直都是在开展的。我们这个发布时间本身就是按照我们这样的一个发布节奏这个是正常的一个发布节奏。当然，原来我们是预期会比现在早一点，因为疫情的原因也往后推了一些，所以看起来就感觉离交付离得特别近原定的时间比这个肯定是要早一些。那总体上来说，我们是按照计划在往前走的。但 ES7 因为搭载的是我们 NT2 的技术比现有的866的话呢，肯定是智能化的这个技术平台，包括成本都会高一些，所以它的价格也肯定和现在是在现在 ES8 和 ES6 之间那我们会不会有一些替代关系呢？我相信会有一些，但是他们还是有显著的产品的定位的差距，价格上也有差距。比如说它和 ES8 有定位的差距，因为 ES8 是一个6座7座。
If they continue like this, they really will be speaking still when the market is already open. Let's see how many more questions they take.
价格上肯定是要高一些的。 我们觉得定价上也有一些的差距。我们认为866还是有竞争力的总体上来讲，我们觉得这个替代关系应该不会特别大，不会有特别大的挤压的这样的一个效应这是我们的第一个这是第一个问题。
Thank you, Paul, for your question. Regarding the first question, we have always been working on the development of our new products, and we have been working on the development of the ES7 for some time, and the launch time of the ES7 is actually already planned when we were developing the product. It may seem that right now it's very close to the delivery of the ES7, but previously our plan is to launch the ES7 earlier due to the impact of the COVID-19. We delayed a little bit. That is why it seems that it's much closer to the actual delivery of the ES7. But everything is actually going forward according to our plan. ES7 is going to be based on the new technology platform 2.0, which is going to be offering higher and smarter technologies compared with the current NT1 technology platform. So, and the current ES8, ES6, and EC6 are actually based on the NT1 technology platforms. There will also be some price differences. The price positioning of the ES7 is going to be between that of the ES8 and the ES6. We believe there's not going to be cannibalizations between the ES7 and the existing models because we have different positionings and the pricing strategies for those products. For example, the ES8 is mainly focusing on the 6-seater and 7-seater markets, and the ES7 is positioned as a mid-large 5-seater SUV, which has the higher pricing compared with that of the ES6.
第二个问题，我们当然这个很早就在为 NT2 的这些产品的爬坡这个产量的这个交付量在做准备虽然有挑战，但是我们在供应链方面是很早就在做这样的准备的。
For the second question, of course, we have already and actually started at a very early stage to plan for the production ramp up of the products based on the NT2 platforms, and we have already done this for some time. Of course, there are going to be some risks, but because we have a plan ahead, we believe it's still manageable.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Yuqian Ding from HSBC. Please go ahead.
谢谢管理层。两个问题，第一个是想跟进一下刚才的讨论。刚威廉们也有提到，就是在涨价覆盖成本上涨的这个方面，可能也有一些益处。我们看到公司的这个定价策略是很。
Never heard this analyst before. Somebody new? And some familiar voices haven't asked questions yet.
一些供应的这个保供，那可能都会带来额外的这个成本增加。
Let's see if they can finish before market open.
这些成本就是侵蚀到什么程度，我们可能会再次 pass 给消费者。
So far, I've got the feeling they're coping really well.
管理层讲一下这个
Quite positive earnings call, I would say. It's all very solid, without any, emotions. Very, very fact-oriented. Some good stuff in there, giving an outlook, explanations. All quite good. I've been invested in NIO when they cancelled earnings call at the very same day, so that was different times, I can tell you.
就是那可能我们正好处在入门级豪华车竞争区间，其他竞争对手也会油车的这个竞争对手突然首次也有了这样的这个优势，所以对于这个我们大概是怎么评估的，对我们量的影响。然后第二个就是说，此前我们发布的时候设计的这个利润率是20%以上，但那个时候其实没有大宗商品的这个影响。那我们订单前期也拿了很多，就是锁定了之前的这个价格。那我们在交付的时候，这个会不会出现一些就是那个时候成本电池价格联动它已经比较高了，然后会对实际交付会对设计的这个margin 产生一定的稀释。 So got two questions. The first is to ask about whether our price hike in May is enough to cover the cost headwind from the battery side, aluminum body, and also the chip alignment in a channel, and what's the management thoughts about the extra cost and also the pricing strategy coming forward. And second question is to ask about the ET5 volume and the margin conviction. We know there's a bit of auto stimulus splash on the entry luxury, which is the currently ET7 has been located within the segment. And also previously we have a design 20% above margin, but back in the time we haven't considered, we might not consider the cost headwind coming from the commodity side might persist longer.
好，谢谢玉乾。Stanley， 你回答第一个问题吧。
好的。Hi, Yuqian. This is Stanley. For the cost increase of battery, I think William has give us a lot of guidance. And regarding the price increase of other material and also chip costs, I think we have absorbed through close cooperation with our partners and also internal efficiency improvements. And also, as William introduced, the whole market for the key raw materials are quite dynamic. At this moment, we cannot give the precise estimation of the following months or quarters, the trend. So for the second question, William.
ET5 的话，确实我们今年涨价也好，怎么样也好，因为我们今年肯定这个预订单，今年肯定是交付产不出来的，所以我们会再看一看情况吧，再看一看这个材料的情况吧。这个现在我们还是专注在赶紧把它产出来，所以不管 ET5 涨不涨价，其实对今年都没什么影响。
For the ET5. Because we have already accumulated a significant amount of reservation orders. So if we consider the production of the ET5, we believe for this year, the production of ET5 will only be sufficient to meet the backlog for the ET5 orders. So this price increase of the ET5 is not going to have any impact of our vehicle gross margin performance this year.
Right, thank you. Our next question comes from Vijay Rakesh from Mizuho. Please ask your question.
Yeah, hi. I have a quick two questions. On your in-house capacity with Hefei, you talked about 240,000 annual capacity. Do you think you get to that 20,000 a month run rate by end of Q3 of this year, Q3 22? And the second question is on the NIO park. That obviously has an incremental additional 300,000 per year capacity. You talked about ramp starting that in Q3. Can you walk through how that ramp should look? Will it be like 10,000 a month exiting this year and then gradually increase next year? That's it. Thank you very much.
好，谢谢VJ。这个Steven， 要不你回答一下这个问题。
Okay, so Vijay, thanks for your question. For the production capacity of our first plant with JC NIO, as we have mentioned, we will continue to ramp up its production capacity in Q3. I think probably at least in the second half of the year, our overall production capacity should reach 20,000 units per month. It can be, it's not probably too early for us to see when. And then for the F2's ramp up pace, actually first, we will kick off the delivery of ET5 from this plant in Q3. So it will kick off production in Q3. And then we try to reach 10,000 units within quite short period, probably 3-4 months. I think that's our plan. But of course, next year, as we introduce more models into this factory, the overall production volume of F2 will continue to rise.
Right, thank you. Next question comes from Jane Chang from CICC. Please ask the question.
好的，谢谢管理层。然后我这边的话可能
Wow, another new analyst, and they're taking even questions 9 minutes before they open. But anyways, wow, this analyst was asking kind of the tough questions and getting very straight to the production numbers, and I'm surprised to hear that they kind of confirming basically they're looking for the 20K per month, not giving the exact month, but yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to hear, so it's not too bad. So one translator already gave up. Let's see this last question, maybe the last.
My first question is about it was reported that in May that we have relevant recruitment information in the United States. So can you share more details about it? How do you see the breakthroughs in overseas market? Which potential market we think have more potential for us to deployment, and what are the difficulties? And my second question is about NAD. NAD, can you share more details about its current testing progress? That's all. Thank you.
好，谢谢唐静。Steven， 你回答第一个问题吧。
Okay, Tanji, thank you for your question. So first, with regard to the U.S. market, the short answer is we'll definitely enter the U.S. market. And actually, we've started a comprehensive study of the U.S. market and have a dedicated team in charge of developing this plan for the market. We'll tap into the U.S. market with an innovative manner. But now it's still in the study phase, so we'll share more information when it's appropriate. And also then for the difficulties or difference in the Northern European markets, I was first actually with a lot of commonalities between China and the European market, from the business model to the aspiration for green smart EV products. The Norwegian users also enjoy the concept of smart EV and user enterprise. But if we do need to name some difference, of course, first the culture and also the cost structure. So in Europe, surely the labor cost will be higher, and also we need to accumulate enough understanding of the local culture and get integrated into the local community. William, back to you.
Yeah. 第二个问题就是 NAD， 因为 NIO Pilot 的话呢，这个我们现在的这个 NT2 上面的这个 NIO Pilot 就是我们的辅助驾驶的所有的功能，那么应该说是基于我们自己的全站技术去做的啊，从感知到我们整个的这个算法，到整个的这个规控啊，所有的事情都是我们自己的技术在做的。那我们看到了这个从这个3月18号 ET7 交付以后，我们看到了自己掌握这种全站技术的这种基于数据闭环、快速迭代、辅助驾驶能力的这样一个巨大的优势。那在过去的这2个多月的时间里边，我们看到我们辅助驾驶各方面的性能指标都有非常大的一个跃升啊，因为我们会根据数据会持续的去迭代和改进，去 training， 去训练和这个改进我们的这个辅助驾驶各方面的性能那如果根据我们自己的测试的话呢，和我们第一代的这个辅助驾驶相比的话，那我们应该说是有几倍的这么一个性能的提升。那我们也讲到了，我们在3季度我们会发布这个NOP Plus， 就是辅助驾驶的这样一个增强版。那我们从目前的测试的角度来讲的话，我们还是非常有信心的。那么这个高精地图也是我们和腾讯合作从那个自研的角度去跟它有这样的一个合作那我们是集成到我们整个的这个自动驾驶和辅助驾驶的这样的一个 整个的这样的一个数据闭环的框架里边。那当然有了这些基础，我们相信 NAD 我们也在这个，因为我们现在辅助驾驶和自动驾驶是基于一个技术站去做的，那我们对这个 NAD 这件事情我们是非常有信心的。我们看到了我们的传感器、我们算力、我们数据闭环、快速进化能力，整体的这样的一个体系的这样的一个能力我们看到跟我们的第一代 NT1 相比是
I really think NIO should schedule an investor event because these analysts are asking very basic questions and very detailed.
Regarding NAD, the current ADAS functions and features based on the new technology platform 2.0 is actually derived from the full stack technologies developed in-house by our own AD teams. We have a comprehensive full stack capabilities starting from sensing, algorithm, and control strategy. Starting from the delivery of the ET7 on March 28th, we have witnessed the data closed loop management and collection, which has helped us to achieve a very fast iteration and upgrades of the vehicle autonomous driving or ADAS experiences based on the NT2. So for us, we have witnessed many improvements in the last 2 months because we can collect our data and we can actually see all those data. We can see that the performance of the NT2 is actually several times better than that of the NT1 because after we collect all those data, we can use the data to train our algorithm and our ADAS and AD technologies. So I have also just mentioned that we're going to release the NOP Plus. We're very confident with the performance of the NOP Plus. This NOP Plus is going to be based on the high definition map developed together by ourselves together with Tencent. And this is going to be an in-house high definition map. We are going to integrate all those different technologies, including the high definition map with our AD and ADAS closed loop data management. So we are going to use the same kind of technology stack to improve our autonomous driving and ADAS features. That is why we're very confident with the NAD performance in the long run, based on our sensing capabilities, the closed loop data management, and also the fast iterations and the systematic capabilities.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for all your questions. We have reached the end of the question and answer session. I'll now turn the call back to the management team for closing remarks.
Thank you once again for joining us today. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact the NIO's Investor Relations team through the contact information provided on our website. This concludes the conference call. You may now disconnect your line. Thank you.
So, wow, that's it. Crazy that the NIO management always takes so much time for answering all of the questions from the analysts, and many new analysts on the call, which I haven't heard before. So it's good to get a new flavor of questions there. I think the overall call was good. They have really had lots of flesh on the bone where it was necessary. Actually, even talking about monthly order numbers, the production numbers, and had explanations for everything that made sense, and quite a bit of news regarding some of the new platforms, the next car generations, and increasingly pitching those autonomous driving features, I feel. So I would say that was a very, very good call. Solid as usual. That's what they are managing to do despite, as I mentioned, the earnings report, which was quite normal, I would say, to be expected, and then some of the negatives in there as well, of course. I think today it depends more on the overall market. If I look at this, let's share my screen again here with the overall screen. So we're now live, right? Let's see. Yes, down -8%, almost 9%. Huge sell-off in KWeb possibly. Let me check. KWeb is down. Might be profit taking. Might be people freaking out because of the potential, COVID spreads. Who knows? Might be people shorting the crap out of China as always, as they usually do. Who knows? I wouldn't take that, as a sign for NIO, because it's all over the board. You can see that the difference here, for example, between Li Auto, Xpeng, and NIO, that should be giving you a better idea of what is the takeaway by the investors here in where NIO is standing in comparison just for today. But as always, most of these companies actually are selling off after the earnings, so that's nothing unusual. I don't give that too much of a importance here. And interesting that Tesla's up here, which is good, because in case that there are fear of new lockdowns in China, obviously that would also affect Tesla. But it seems that the numbers that came out for Tesla China today have been taken quite positive. SPY, so the S&P 500 is down, maybe trying to base out here. Nasdaq, the QQQ. Don't look at my funny drawings here. This is just what I put in here time to time. Yeah, maybe tomorrow is an important event when it comes to inflation data and the anticipation of the Fed meeting. Maybe we are seeing a bit of a range-bound bounce and sell-off back and forth here. And if you want to know my views on inflation and the markets, make sure to join my Patreon, patreon.com/Dongxi. You'll find it always in the descriptions of the comments, so you can read a long post, which is also lots of economic data and how I'm seeing things. I may have to update it next week, actually. I'm usually doing this like every month, 2 times every month, more or less, sometimes more frequent if it's necessary. And then for the $10 tier, you can actually chat daily with me and also the community. So we are talking about those things. I think I will dive back into those NIO earnings with a bit more specifics. I found those developments on the battery development side quite interesting. That's something which I've not covered so far, despite the hybrid solid-state battery so far, which of course is very interesting, but it seems they are getting more and more in-house and trying to do many more things by themselves, and particularly also looking to increase the cost savings there. So that's interesting. That's the right way to go, I would say, but it's also a dangerous way, because Tesla is not, NIO is not really following exactly the ways of Tesla, right? In terms of having this very, very, very deeply vertically integrated supply chain. As I said, NIO has a different vision and a different way where they are, performing very efficiently in terms of focusing on the design, on the lifestyle, on additional services, I think, more than manufacturing. But maybe they've noticed with all of the things going on also in the Chinese ecosystem, with BYD, with CATL also challenging them some way on the battery swapping side, that they need to kind of take this into their own hands. That will be interesting to watch. So let's check NIO. Yeah, broke some support here, but yeah, nothing that I'm too worried about right now, to be expected in a way. Maybe depending way more on whether or not this current bear market rally can continue, and whether it is maybe even more than a bear market rally, in case we find out tomorrow that inflation actually really has peaked. And that's the important narrative here. Maybe there is too much damage already been done to the economy, and at some point in time, I'm not sure if the US economy, which is increasingly looking not so solid, can actually handle the interest rates peaking here to 3%. Not so sure about this. So let's see. Certainly one of the most difficult times if you are trading or if you are investing. in many ways, this is really a popped bubbles. If you look at some of those growth names, of course, ARK Invest, everyone knows about that, looking terrible, but also KWeb is no different, right? So let's see. For NIO, I think that the good thing here is, this company is producing real products, and in my opinion, products that will be very sought after. So for them, the question is rather, can they deliver it? Will there be lockdowns? Will there be supply chain issues? Can competition, and with competition, I mean like the Germans, can they catch up or not? And so far, I think with the NT 0.2 platform, this will be a very, very, very competitive platform in terms of, the software, the hardware, everything. And then once they push their subscription base by the end of the year with autonomous driving, that will be a very, very exciting time. And there's a very long way for the legacy automakers to catch up with that. And then NIO today already talking about actually the next platform to come out, about which I'm rather skeptical. But anyway, that was a very long call, 3 hours. Thank you guys for watching. If you like that, please always some thumbs up, share it in your favorite NIO stock trading group. That would be very appreciated. In case you are interested in those Patreon benefits, then please support the channel and consider that this keeps us going, and do that without having to trouble you all of the time with advertisement or something like this. And it's very much appreciated. Thank you guys for the encouraging, all of the chats. I'm glad you guys are alive and not only bots watching. Pretty cool. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.